This show is brought to you by Lives in Designs. That's Livsn. Guys, I cannot get enough of this brand. Ask anybody. They make the best apparel for the life of a climber. Comfortable, flexible, durable, all with an undeniable sense of outdoor fashion. Plus, Livsn has a wide variety of killer color options, whether you want to stand out in the caramel yellow or keep a low profile with their dusk blue. Most importantly, Livsn makes clothes that you can live in and climb in every single day. As an added bonus, Livsn is making their clothes with recycled ocean waste, which I think is pretty cool. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can buy it, try it, and if you still don't like it, you will get your money back. Right now, you can get 15% off at Livsn by using the link in the description below and using code TCM15 at checkout. That's the link in the description below and TCM15 for 15% off at checkout.
We were in Index. I don't know if you've climbed there, but
I haven't. I've heard a lot about it.
Oh my God, it's so good. Yeah.
Which state is it in again?
It's in Washington, so it's like a couple hours east of Seattle.
Is this like basalt column nation kind of vibe?
No, it's granite. It's like a super compact granite, best granite crag in the country, they would say. And then like it's famous for being like super sandbagged, which they're like really proud of. And to me, it's just like, yeah, you're just grading wrong. Like, what's there to be proud of? You know.
Now, is it like old school sandbagged, like Joshua Tree and Tuck Eats, or is it just like notoriously modern day sandbagged?
It's modern day sandbag. So like I get on a 12B and like I like work it multiple sessions and can't do moves when, you know, I've onside, 12B handily many times, so it's just kind of like, it's just kind of wrong. But I don't know. In a way, I like it because it just de-emphasizes the importance of grades, and if it's not getting people hurt, which, I feel like grades originally, that was kind of the beautiful idea of them, was like, oh, it helps you stay safe by picking the appropriate challenge, and now, I don't know, is that really what grades do for us now? I'm not sure. I feel like nowadays we use the grade for more nefarious purposes, or I don't know. I could
see that. No, I mean, I posted a comment or a post about rostrum recently, and I was like, the crack is so good, like you can place and take anywhere, just go for it. And somebody commented like, oh, well, you told people on Epi that you should wait and practice chimneys before you get on epinephrine, but we should just all go for rostrum. And I'm like, you're missing the point here. It's like, what I'm saying is that, yes, it's an 11C, but you can place and take anywhere. So therefore it's safe. And so you should go for it. Like, not all 11Cs have a splitter crack running up the entire route for 800 feet. And you might run into positions where you're going to have really bad gear or no gear at all. And you're going to force through a run out section that you have to be prepared for. And those are the kind of situations where if you're unprepared for, you can get yourself in a pretty fucked up situation pretty quick.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I always we teach more at like advanced trad courses and stuff, and we're getting people to break through that whole gear fear and just like be like, look at this climb. The crack goes from the bottom to the top. Doesn't matter what the grade is. Do you have enough gear? Then you're only going to get yourself into trouble if you do some really dumb stuff, assuming they can place good gear. And that's kind of a prerequisite for that. But it's like, you would only get yourself into trouble if you climbed up into and you were a little bit shaky and you decided, oh, I'm going to keep punching it until I find a rest. That's the only way you're going to hurt yourself there. But at any point you can stick a piece in and take or whatever. But yeah. And then I have to emphasize, like, just because we did this on this one pitch doesn't mean every pitch is like that. Right. It's like, you kind of got to assess the climb and yeah, I mean, right. Like what they call 513 cracks, A1, C1. Right? It's like super easy. It's like the easiest hang dogging ever. So, well, they can be, or they can be really hard. So, but yeah, congrats on the rostrum. That's a pretty sweet climb to
Thanks,
get
man.
back.
Yeah, it was way more physical and way harder than I expected. Like I did Voyager, and Voyager, both my partner and I just like felt like we crushed it. We're just like, I won fell on the 11C boulder problem. I think P4. Like I couldn't get my feet up high enough before going for the jug, and so I whipped. But then I got it second try, and then we sent the rest of the route clean. And so we're like, dude, Rostrum's next. Like we got it. And we get on Rostrum, and we just get fucking spanked.
Yeah, I remember getting on Voyager, and that was a while ago now, and like I was kind of talking down on it because I was like, oh, the pitches are short and I was kind of wanting like a more of this fight, like this old school kind of fight, like long pitches. And but no, Voyager's great, and the Rostrum's great, but yeah, totally different
Totally
animals.
different. I mean, even
Yeah.
from the start, it's like 5'9", but you're like power live backing straight from the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
and
I
it's
think
like,
I've actually fallen on that pitcher. I've fallen on one of the early pitches where I was just like not focused and just felt I was having a bad day that day for sure.
I have a really bad track with picking the wrong side to put my back on chimneys. Like when I started epinephrine when I first climbed it, I picked the wrong side, and since then I've learned, okay, like if if a chimney is slanted in a way, put your feet on the slab side and put your back on the overhanging side.
Yeah, dude, you're teaching me, man. Yeah, I get it wrong so
And I
often.
chose the wrong side on rostrum, so I put my feet on the slab side and my back on the overhanging side, and it was great until I got to the top. But then at the top, all the jugs to get out of the chimney are on the other side. And so I
Oh
had to
yeah.
like turn around with no pro to like get out of this chimney. I'm like, I fucking chose the wrong side
Oh
again.
man.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
I know. I like there was an era for me where I constantly did the wrong way in, and it's just like I'm like, I know the theory, but like why does it never work?
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Well, that's great. Yeah, I might have some Valley time coming up in October and looking forward to it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to go for Naiad in October. We just did Half Dome in a Day in June. My partner has done the nose over 4 days with a partner. And so I'm like, I'd be willing to kind of on-site Naiad with you, if that's a thing. But after the roster, and we both kind of had a reality check. We're just like, I think we need to prepare a little bit more. So we're going to push it back. We'll do like a nose push together as a partnership in the spring, and then go for Naiad in the fall.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds great.
A little
Yeah.
bit more cruiser, and that way I'll get to actually experience the wall a little bit.
Yeah, and you don't want a Naiad in like 23 hours. You want to do it like that's I think not fun. I mean, it's fun in its own way, but it's like it's not fun. It's like maybe taking a lot more risk, debatably, if you're getting that tired. Like, yeah, if you're pushing, 26 hours like, yeah, that's
No, I think there's a quote that says efficiency is an enjoyment. And I firmly stand behind that. It's like if you're not having an efficient day and you're just like struggling to move, like it's a bad time.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick though. Great goal.
Nice, man. Thank you. But yeah, dude, honestly, I wanted to really open this conversation about, identity and philosophy. And I really
Cool.
feel like your story here, I've got a lot of topics I want to talk about, and I have a lot of them that I want to preface with some of your stories.
Sure.
And so the first story I want to dive into is about your experience rope soling the Freerider at El Cap. I just want to open, this conversation with that story. And then we can dive into kind of like what it meant for you and how it changed your philosophy and identity surrounding climbing. So yeah, like talk to me about your experience, rope soling the Freerider on El Cap, and like walk me through kind of that play-by-play story.
Yeah, man, damn. I just got like the chills even thinking about it, or like having to like speak with authority on this because really I'm still like processing I not what I went through, like it was like traumatic really, but just like how I feel about what happened with me up there, and I think certain days I have different perspectives on it and
So, I mean,
you know,
before actually digesting kind of your reflections post send, like what was it like going into that objective? What was it like choosing that objective, and walk me through that experience on the wall?
man, so I definitely did not put that much thought into it, to be honest. I've done a lot of rope soloing, and that was a form of climbing I really enjoyed. And I feel like I've heard free climbing El Cap is like this big goal for a lot of climbers. And to be perfectly honest, it wasn't really for me. I never honestly the beginning of that year, I never even thought I would like or maybe the year before. I'm bad with dates, but like that would be on the table for me. And all of a sudden kind of it was. And but it was never like something I dreamed about or like, for years and years. It was just kind of like, oh, I could maybe do that. And um I put some work into the route. I went up with a buddy and like poorly planned and like in the dark tried the boulder problem and couldn't even imagine climbing it. And then that season I think I wrapped in twice. I think I did 2 sessions on my cruxes, which were the boulder problem, the enduro corner, and then the monster. Um, and I didn't send any of those. Maybe I sent the enduro corner, but I didn't send the boulder problem or the monster, to be honest, because you just kind of have to want it, and when you're just working it, you like don't really want it that bad. Um, and yeah, and then for some reason I thought rope soloing it sounded like, oh, I haven't really sent the crux or anything, but let me just, it seems reasonable to rope solo it, which it totally, like in hindsight, is so ridiculous. Um, and yeah, and it just plays a little bit to, I'm an introvert for sure, and like, I could have found a partner for there's tons of people that want to like get rope gunned up the Freerider. So I could have found someone to climb it with, but I was just like, I think I know. Basically, I got to the point where I was like, even though I hadn't sent anything, well, I'd sent stuff, but I was like, I know I can probably do this. And so it's like, well, should I just check the box, or I could try rope sewing it, and now I have no clue if I can do this or not. Suddenly it's like, lots of question marks, lots to figure out. And yeah, decided to, just kind of broke the route down and just kind of made sense. It's like, I mean, really, you look at the Freerider, there's like a few hard pitches, and the rest is, you know, there's not even that many 511 pitches, to be honest. Um, I don't know all the numbers, and I mean, I have notes on every single pitch of that climb. I'd really like put the work in.
I mean, that was something that surprised me with the nose too, is just how many moderate pitches there were.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And when I teach big wall, I tell people that it's like, it's a lot of 510 and under, but you have to factor in that you don't climb if you climb 510 at the crag, you don't climb 510 on the nose. It's like you're so bogged down, like physically and psychologically. But yeah, somehow I convinced myself it was a reasonable idea to give it a try, and yeah, it was in hindsight, really audacious. Kind of the longer that goes by, this was something like 4 years ago now. I don't remember exactly, but the more time that goes by, the more I realize that that's kind of audacious. Like I met Brent Bargan, who runs Avant Climbing Solutions now, I think it's called, the rope solo gadgets, in the valley then, and he rope soloed Father Time that season, which is super gangster. Um, and we chatted like briefly in the valley, but I found out later, like, and this is kind of obvious, but he had climbed Father Time before, and so then he was just going back to rope solo it. And for me, I was on-sighting a lot of pitches up there, and even when I was towards the top of the route, I had people, 513 plus trad climbers wrapping in to work out the exit pitches. I'd never even been on the exit pitches, and it's like, yeah, and that's all to say that, I probably could have, I bit off a lot for that, for me, for where I was at. I'd climbed a handful of 513s at that point, but
Yeah, kind of where were you as a climber when you chose this objective?
yeah, so like I said, a year previous, I kind of it was never on my radar. I was like, I had maybe climbed a 512 on gear, and I was an on-site climber, like I like fell sometimes, but I would only really get on stuff to try and on-site, and took that pretty far, took that into 512. And then COVID, I was living in my van, and COVID was a time where I just like kind of dug in. I was out climbing, and I dug in into projecting and climbed my first, 12B and 12C and 12D and 13A, and then a handful of 13As. And so yeah, so I had climbed, I don't know, maybe four or something, 513s at that point, something like that. One 13B, but they all to me, and I don't know if this is just I was this what happens when you're feeling good and stuff's your style, but it all felt like these are all not real 513s, and I think a lot of people, we have this imposter syndrome in climbing. Once we do something, we're like, it's not that hard, like.
Yeah, I think there's a mix there though, because I think the big thing is if you feel that way and then you make public that feeling, it almost becomes like this, like, oh, it's not 513. You're like publicly downgrading it to make yourself look better. Like if you feel like that and you keep it to yourself, then cool. Like I totally understand that. But if you're like on Instagram and be like, yeah, it's not a 513, you're like, dude, you haven't even climbed enough of them to say that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. It can be self-aggrandizing in its own way. But also, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I see that a lot in myself especially, where you accomplish something and then you're like, well, I did it, so it can't be that hard. And it's like, no, come on, you've put work in. Like
Yeah, it's like
that's what
unallowing yourself to like accept the fact that you've gotten better.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I hadn't climbed, all those routes were on like limestone, limestone sport routes. And yeah, was never a boulderer, and obviously I did the boulder problem. And that people call it V7. I've never climbed V7. I've climbed like a V7 in a gym, I think. And I've, maybe two V7s in a gym. But yeah, it just happened to be like really my style. Like technical, very dancey, very not powerful. It's a boulder problem in the sense that it's not a whole lot of moves, but it's not like it's just that traverse you see the clips of that's hard. It's like it's hard from the anchor. The first couple moves off the anchor are pretty hard. Um, but yeah, it really fit my style. And once I finally got it to click, which was on the rope solo, it felt like easy, which is how that technical climbing can be. When you get it, you're just on your feet the right way and you have your self position. It's like, how could you, like I was like, I could see, I would never free solo it, obviously, but like, I'm like, I could kind of see that. Like when you have, it's like feels, when I was first on it, it's like, that's completely unfathomable, and,
I was about to ask, like, I mean, obviously we've all seen free solo. We watched Alex Honnold free solo that exact section. And so, I mean, you just kind of answered my question is like, yeah, you could see that. You could see that.
yeah, yeah. And, having put some time, so I rope soloed the Freerider, and then I wasn't really all that happy with my performance on it, which I guess we'll get to. And then I came back like a week later and climbed it with some friends. And so I had, a handful of laps on it. And that time it also just like, I just like floated. And yeah, it's insane, but it does feel, when you have the body tension all right and stuff, it does feel like, and that's when grading gets really hard. Because if I was the first ascensionist of that, I'm like, is this is this like 10 plus or is it 513? It's because it feels so, when you've got it, it feels so good. But
I talk about this a lot with guests, and I think one of the consensuses we've come up with is like grading should almost be the on-site. That's the experience, right? It's not that's the one variable that's equal across everybody that comes across the climb. It's like, yeah, sure, someone can spend 100 times trying this grade and making it feel as easy as possible, but the first attempt you get on that climb is like the most raw, the most universal experience you get. I feel like the on-site grade should be almost like the one that's the most recognized in a way.
yeah, I feel like that makes sense. I mean, it just gets so muddy and murky when you work something for a while. It's like just impossible to step back out and decide how hard that might be. And it's all, it is a nice insight into grades, because it's just so subjective, and when people want to be like, well, do you think that's really 12B? Don't you think it's a bit, it's like, I don't care. It's like, there's so much wiggle room. I've climbed, 511s that feel harder, and 513s that feel easier. And it's like, it's just an idea. And yeah, I think I don't know, the less we can focus on that, the better. Although it's addicting, it's right there. It's that number, and it tells you everything you need to know about yourself as a climber. Not really, but it can feel like that, right?
Yeah,
It's
for
like,
sure. I would say it's probably like the more you climb, the more you realize grades don't matter, and the less you've climbed, the more they matter. Would you agree with that statement?
the more you climb, maybe, yeah. I think the more you climb and the more diversity you get in your climbing, the more you just get shit on, here and there. You get on, yeah, a wide climb in the valley, and it messes with you. I think if you're like a limestone sport climber, I don't know. I feel like maybe you could feel really consistent. But then even there's styles. There's the techie style, or like, the overhanging style. Um,
But back to Freerider. So one thing I read on your report, it said that every top rope gave you mental anguish.
Oh yeah.
So talk to
Yeah,
me about the
totally.
style that you kind of held yourself accountable for on this, and how that kind of like mentality carried to how you felt at the top, and how that ultimately obviously brought us to kind of your mentality today.
Yeah, yeah. You might help me figure this all out. This is gonna be great. Um, yeah, so like for some reason I expected myself to do this flawlessly. I hadn't climbed a lot of the pitches. I hadn't even sent the crux, and I was expecting myself to, send every pitch on lead. And so my first day, so I climbed the free blast in a day, and then I wrapped to the ground down the heart lines, which is, style asterisk number 1. And if you want to keep track, there's going to be plenty. So, but wrapped to the ground and rested on the ground for a day. Um, and that was my first time even sending free blast, was on the rope solo. And then my second day was heart ledges to the alcove, which is above the monster. And the monster was just rough for me. And on this day, I mean, I forget how many pitches it is. It's something like 10 pitches or whatever. And when you're rope soloing, you're climbing the pitch, you're wrapping down the pitch, you're jugging up the pitch, and then you're hauling your bag, right? So it's kind of a lot of work. And by the time, the monster is the last pitch to get up into the alcove. And by the time I got there, I was pretty wrecked. And I kind of underestimated the amount of work that all was, even though I've done a lot of, done big wall solos and done like harder rope solos and stuff. But yeah, and I took the Bermuda Dunes entry into the monster, which is just slightly different than the down climb that most folks do. I just never got on the down climb for whatever reason. And so, yeah, without, doing a play-by-play of moves, I basically, one of the cruxes, or probably the crux there, is getting into the monster, and you're kind of up under this little overhang, and you're kind of getting up over. And I just had every single rope soloing bullshit happen to me in that one moment, which is your device locks up because your backup knot or whatever, and then you have to release your backup knot and then release your device. And then it was getting stuck under the little roof thing, and I was just daisied onto a 6 that I was like kind of pushing ahead of me, because without a belayer, I mean, people even do that with a belayer. They'll daisy onto a larger cam that they push ahead of them, but that just takes out the element of like, how soon will the gree catch, and yada yada with rope soloing. So then the daisy was caught under the lip of the roof, and I had to pull that out, and then I just like whipped onto the daisy. I just like was screaming. I couldn't like hold on with my hands, so I couldn't like grip. So I was just like putting my wrists in there flat and trying to like, and just screaming. And I was just so fatigued at that point, and I just spat out and whipped onto the daisy, onto the 6. And I had that like, that sound when you like, or that smell when you like clack 2 rocks together or something,
Yeah.
that kind of like, yeah, I had that smell, and I was just hanging like so defeated. So that was my first fall. And I knew the monster was hard for me, and just a lot of physical work in general. And I'm just like, oh man. And so now what? Do I lower down myself down to the beginning of the pitch and start again from there? Do I like clean the gear? Do I pull the rope, or do I yo-yo back up to my high point? And basically I was so cooked that I aided at the monster, which aiding and off with is so awful. Um, so I just like aided it, which was so annoying and tiring. And the monster's 200 feet, easy. And yeah, kind of got up into the alcove, and I think I cleaned, wrapped down, ascended up, all the things. And yeah, and then was kind of like stuck in the alcove, and wondering, what to do next. And the next day I decided to, because if I'm going for this pure style, I have to now wrap down bring all my ropes down, and then like, re-lead that pitch. And I opted to just to top rope solo it. And that was kind of the start of the asterisks kind of piling up. And then also, my headspace kind of faltering as well, because I was holding myself to such a high standard for some unknown reason, really. And yeah, so that was kind of the first top rope.
What was
But
the
man,
second? Was it the boulder problem?
the second, man, what comes next?
So
Yeah, the
I heard
boulder
you. Yeah, I
problem.
think you top roped the boulder problem, and you had some pretty ethical dilemma with like having left it unfinished on lead.
Yeah, so I gave it 5 lead goes, and again, I never sent it, and I came so close on many of those goes, and I actually have like I have a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of like selfie videos and stuff from this ascent, and I'm just kind of like it's kind of embarrassing to watch, and I've only shown a few people because I'm like you can tell I'm just kind of pretty troubled or like going through a lot. And I do my first attempt and I'm like, whoa, that went really well. Like I think I can do it, and then just attempt after attempt, you just see me be like, fuck, I blew it. Like, like
Just
I
deteriorating.
did the kick, I got my hand across, and then I blew it, and it's just like, yeah, totally deteriorating. The sun's hitting me now, my skin, like I'm complaining about my skin, although I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's still actually pretty good. I'm kind of trying to find excuses, and then I end up kind of climbing to the top, fixing the rope, refining one piece of beta that was pretty key, and then kind of floating it on top rope. And it's just like, I should have I could have done it. I should have done it, and then like, what are people going to think? It's like, it's not even going to count. Because I was like, I can top rope the monster as long as I lead the boulder. Like, no one's going to care, And no one's going to care about any of this anyway, It's not like you're going to get invited on a podcast and have to talk about it at some point. But yeah, I was just this was all playing in my head, and it was starting to feel more and more like a failure. Which in a way it was, but again, like it doesn't matter, nobody cares. And I was still having joyful moments on the climb, and like hooting and hollering to myself and just being like, blown away. But there was definitely this undercurrent where I was just feeling like I was doing things in really bad style, and 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 I kind of knew I was upset at myself for being upset about it, And I didn't, this route's pretty popular, but there was nobody. I saw nobody until like the last 2 pitches. Some folks wrapped in, and there was just nobody to like, just shoot the shit with, clear the mind out with.
Share the
It's like,
burden.
yeah, rope soloing. It's all on you physically, emotionally, and I've done a lot of stuff alone, and I never really felt that, but man, I felt it on this. And I think the reason was because I had seen a lot of success in my climbing, and I was an on-site climber for a long time because I like to, well, I love on-siting, but it's like I was succeeding, and I kind of bit off more than I could chew in a way, at least if I wanted to chew it in the best possible style, I still got up the thing and technically, freed every move or whatever, um but yeah.
This show is brought to you by Lives In Designs. If Lives In were only known for one piece of apparel, it would be their overalls. I just got back from a reggae music festival in Vegas, and I kid you not, over 10 people came up to me and my fiance asking about these overalls. Overalls are coming back, and Lives In is leading the charge. They offer 2 types of materials, the durable flex canvas and the lightweight breathable Eco Trek. Most importantly, these technical bibs come with 11 functional pockets, pens, phones, wallets, keys, beers, you name it, these Lives In overalls have a place for them all. Trust me when I tell you, Lives In's overalls are the outdoor apparel you didn't know you needed. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it, try it, and if you still don't like it, they will give you your money back. Right now, you can get 15% off at Lives In by going to the link in the description below and using code TCM15 at checkout. That's the link in the description below and TCM15 for 15% off at checkout.
You got to the top, and I would say most people, experience euphoria and just like success and relief, and just a release of the tension that you've built on the wall. Did you have that kind of experience, or describe what happened up there?
No, not at all. And I was like hoping for that so bad. I was just like, get to the top, like somehow it'll all click and it'll all feel good and you'll be psyched about it, But yeah, I got to the top, and I have a video of me just being like, I'm grumpy. Like I'm like, maybe I'll be psyched some other time, but for now, like I'm just kind of like grumpy. I had nothing really to say, and and I still don't. I'm still like, I have more questions than answers, to be honest. But about, what that all, where that was all coming from, and it's hard to look back 4 years later or whatever, and say, how you felt or why you were doing something, but yeah, it didn't feel good. Kind of accomplished, like, you know, in a way accomplished, but in a way, with all the asterisks and stuff, but still an accomplishment. And yeah, just felt shitty.
How was it a pivot point for you?
Well, I think, I after that, I kind of like went into, I don't want to say like a dark period because that's being a little dramatic, but um, it was, for me, because I think it was me. I think it was just a kind of a part of growing up, honestly, where I had this kind of value system, or I was kind of chasing something, and in a way, I caught it with rope soloing Freerider, and I found it to be kind of meaningless, and so it forced me to just be like, whoa, this whole way I've been leading my life for a while is is fundamentally not, quite right, and I need to make some adjustments about, because if I just, took on all that, it's not it's not that risky. Maybe it's weird to say that it's not that risky, but it's like, I don't know.
If you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's riskier than, a round of golf or something, but and it's hard to say it's not riskier than climbing with a partner, but it's not insane. It's not, yeah, it's not free soloing. But to take risk and to do all this hardship and this struggle and take the physical, the literal time and all the effort and the kind of the anguish, and to have like not a, if you're doing that and then you're feeling like amazing after and really fulfilled and really like, um, gaining tons of confidence, and that's helping you in your life, it's like, okay, you can really justify that. But if you finish something like that and it's just kind of like, you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, like, oh, I don't know. I'm almost, it was weird to share about it. And I was in a phase of where I was sharing kind of more on social media and stuff. And, and, oh, where was I going with that? Yeah, I don't know.
If like this whole mentality of bigger, harder, better, faster, if that doesn't end up being a worthy pursuit, to me, it means that you're either running away from something or you're missing a portion of your life that you're avoiding. Did you end up finding like what the missing puzzle piece was?
Yeah, I feel like that puts it very nicely and simply. And I'm still working on all this stuff, but it's so funny because I came down from the Freerider, and it was the next day I met up with a girl I knew from high school, and she was like, "Hey, I'm getting into climbing." And she lived in San Francisco, and I was like, "Oh, you come to Yosemite, And I like kind of forgot about that. I was on the wall and I was like, "Oh, actually I might not make it." Like, because like the weather, I still have extra food, I might stick around. And then yeah, and now we've been dating basically ever since.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was really this I mean, it was not easy transition really, but yeah, it forced me to kind of reconsider. I was living in a van, like a shitty van forever, and like saw no way out, and it was just climbing, 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 climbing. And I had gotten a lot of reward from being all about climbing. And then yeah, I needed to tweak that because it was really causing me some trouble. I mean, to the point where I was having panic attacks in the valley. I did like the Tuolumne or like, yeah, the Tuolumne Triple Crown or something, and soloed it all, and it was awesome, but then the next day I was so exhausted I couldn't do anything. But then I was like, anxious about the fact that I wasn't doing anything because I was too tired to do anything because of the things I've been doing, and it's just like, oh my gosh, dude, like this is not gonna work, and yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in that, when you're living your life to be about climbing, when you've given up on maybe a lifestyle, and you're living in a car, and you're living on the, as cheap as possible to climb all the time, you kind of want something to show for it. And, and so your life's all about that. So you got to be all about that, and
Yeah,
I
it's
see
like
it.
You're
See it a
you're
lot.
chasing grades and achievements to be seen as accomplished and to validate the sacrifices that you've made to get there in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah, 100%. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And I think, a lot of, well, I'll speak for myself, but I think other people can relate is like I didn't I dropped out of school, and like I find a lot of like normal things really challenging to like maintain or like deal with like and I think a lot of people too, but and having those struggles is I think probably how a lot of people end up like living in a van, and the dirtbag lifestyle kind of celebrates a lot of things that like let's not take responsibility, like that's a good thing, and like it's a good thing, and so it kind of like celebrated a lot of that, and I think climbing became a way to be like, okay, I suck at like my life is in shambles, but I'm really good at this. Like I'm good at this one thing. And I think there's a good element of that. We all have egos. You need an ego to survive. And I think if climbing can make you feel kind of confident and good about yourself, and you can bring that to navigate the world, I think that's great. And one of, maybe one of the best things climbing can be. Um, but if it becomes like this is the only thing I've got, and then it can just tip the scales. It's not to say that that we're not having a lot of fun with our friends and all that, but at some point, and I think at some point for me, it just tipped a little bit where it was less about. It started to become a little bit too much about achievement and like kind of a hierarchy, and like what will people think of me, and I mean it's embarrassing to say. I'm like embarrassed to say that, but I think a lot of people can relate, or I hope they can.
I mean,
I was just
even on my small, scale version of this, I also fell into this trap. Like I COVID hit, I got laid off of the job for fine dining. I was trying to find a direction in a career. I just knew I loved climbing. So I was just like, I'm going to dedicate myself to climbing because that's the pinnacle that I know I
yeah,
love.
yeah.
And, I found myself in a horrible accident really quickly. So it almost like just like cut that off really quick, which was really nice. I was just like, no, this is not your direction. Like you need to, you need to diversify. You need to figure something else out. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I've talked to a lot of people that have had this issue happen. And I really think it's when we tie our ego and self-worth to our performance in climbing too tightly, that we start to put too many eggs in that basket. And it's like there's multiple issues or multiple like weak points in that philosophy, in my opinion. And one of them is like, what happens when you get old? Like you're 60, you're 50, and you can't climb as hard anymore. And your entire life you've built your self-worth around your performance in climbing. And when that ultimately is taken away from you by the universe, by God or whatever, by your age, what are you going to rest on? What do you've spent your entire life chasing something that's not even going to give back to you. So there's like that weird juxtaposition there. And then ultimately, I feel like people who are chasing performance in climbing, it's like you're chasing the dream of being sponsored. You're chasing the dream of being a professional athlete, to be paid to climb all the time, because then it's like it's easier to justify. It's like, okay, now it's my job. Now I get to climb for my job, and it's like I get to chase performance for a paycheck instead of I'm chasing performance for I don't know what the fuck, my own self-worth or people's opinions of me. And it sounds like you got pretty close to getting that kind of goal, to getting across that finish line and becoming to step over into a professional athlete where you could kind of live that lifestyle, but you turned it away, or you found that it wasn't something for you. Like, talk to me about that
Well, I mean,
experience.
I certainly wasn't like getting any offers, but it would be hard to say that that's not kind of the game I was playing. And I think a lot of climbers do, and I think a lot of like dirtbag climbers living in their vans are like, well, that's the ultimate.
That's the goal.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think I'm so glad I didn't end up, it's so easy to say, and it's kind of like, well, first of all, I wasn't good enough, right? But like it's so easy to say, like, well, I wouldn't have liked that lifestyle. So, it's like that's why I'm not pro. But I think that would have just added in these elements that for me would have really continued to just really mess with me. Now it's not only is it my internal self-image, but it's also like external, it's also like income and all that. And I think the pro climbing thing gets really glorified. Um knowing some pros and you know, and climbing with them and stuff. It's like, man, it's a lot for not a lot back. Like at the lower tiers, yeah. If you're Alex or Tommy, like it's amazing, right? But for everyone else, you're I don't know, you're giving up a lot, and like you're getting a trip a year covered, maybe you're getting some shoes and ropes and stuff, maybe you're getting a couple grand a month if you're doing, I think quite well. Um, but you're giving up a lot in return for that.
Yeah, so
Um,
I guess, I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but this is actually a topic I've been really interested in lately, is this like the professional climbing scene and the perception of the public of that scene and what it's actually like on the other side. And you just spoke to it a bit, but is there a bit more insight you have in terms of that disparity between the public's view on a climber and our goals and dreams for some people to be chasing this, career of a professional climber versus what it's really like?
I don't think I can speak on that a lot. I'm not, yeah. I've climbed with some pros and hung out with them a few times and stuff, but yeah, I can't say too much. It's interesting though, when I talk to them, candidly and personally, it's like, it's a lot of this stuff that we're talking about. It's like, man, climbing's kind of become a little bit too much. And I kind of want to take, I hear that a lot from, people on magazine covers and stuff. And it's like, so, yeah, I think a lot of, this conversation we're having is out there for them as well. And it feels like making it, but I think even when you've made it, you haven't made it at all. You just now have to
You're at the
post a
bottom of the
certain
totem
amount.
pole
Yeah,
of
you're at
something
the
even
bottom
bigger
of,
that you
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
realize existed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I've definitely experienced that in other areas of my life. You like get to a certain point, you're like, I made it. But then you like look up and you're just like, holy fuck, I didn't
Yeah,
even realize
totally.
this mountain was so big.
And climbing's a great example of that, right? Because you hit 510 and guess what? There's 511. And then you hit 511 and it's like, guess what? There's 512, and so like, and I mean, for the average climber, like it never ends, and like, is Adam Ondra sitting on his hands? No, he's trying to, he's like pushing it too. So it's just like, and it's so obvious, it's so in our face, and yet somehow sometimes we can get a little too chasey and a little less enjoying the moment. And I think that's like an eternal human struggle, right? Between being content with where we are, but continuing to try and achieve and have more impact. And I think that's just, we get to see it in our sport in a certain way, and it kind of manifests itself in a certain way. But I think ultimately that's kind of the one of the great human struggles. It's like, how do you hold on to something lightly, and when and not trying to clench onto it and to your own detriment.
Yeah, how do we strive
um
for growth without falling into complacency?
yeah, totally. I often wonder that. I'm like, oh man, I want, like, yeah, I don't know if you can just be, sit back and be content, or
There's a grace to it. And I think, at least for me in my climbing, I think like I posted about this recently, is like number one is safety. Number two is fun.
yeah, I saw your post.
And then
Yeah,
number
totally.
three is obviously challenge or adventure or, time with people. And it's like, if as long as I'm having fun during and after, then I feel like it's been a good trip.
Yeah, I don't know about the fun thing. Like, I agree. I love that idea. And maybe I'm too much of a pessimist or something, because I'll hear that from my friends and it's like, it's just got to be fun. Like, just have fun. And I'm like, is it that simple? Am I missing something? Like, is it that? Because I don't know. I listened to your recent episode with Tanner and Mike about like the Drew, or like the Goliath and the Drew and stuff. And they're like, well, we just had to have more, have fun. And it's like, why are you guys sobbing if it's fun? Like, it's not, it's not quite that simple, as
Yeah.
fun.
I think there's multiple ways to digest the word fun, right? Fun is like Chuck E. Cheese. We're playing arcades and we're having fun. And then there's fun like, okay, we're suffering out here, but we're not obsessing about the fact that we're having a miserable time, or, the focus is not about the struggle. The focus is like, look around, like, look at the view, like taking a second to like come out of that flow state and like look down and just like recognize like where you are in space, like having the space to open yourself up to have that kind of level of enjoyment, I think is important.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. definitely. And yeah, it's all, and I think having reflections and just observing this in ourselves as we go out and climb, I think that's one of the great, that's what I love about climbing and really any pursuit is the the mirror that it can be, and a chance to look at myself and learn about the people around me, learn about the world around me. Climbing's amazing for that, to travel and stuff. But for me, I'm like really think about, yeah, myself a lot, and climbing can be such an insane mirror into that sometimes if you really, think about it. It's like, man, why am I getting so frustrated? It's like, well, because you expect to be able to climb something like this. And it's giving you trouble, and like, yeah, it can just, yeah, if you really like look at it and pull it apart, it can kind of teach you a lot.
I think it can teach you a lot about your personal life too. Like if you're, so much of climbing is mental space, right? Like if you're not in a good mental space at home, if you've got family stuff going on, you've got career stuff going on, you've got stresses at your home, like you're going to bring that to the wall, and it's going to show when you're at your limit and you're like trying to figure out crux gear or crux beta and you're like really pushing it. You're not going to be as locked in as you would as if like your life was locked in when you showed up to the crag. And I think that's another reason why climbing is so important, is because like when you're not feeling good, you're like, okay, like what do I need to reflect on? Like, what do I got to figure out? Like, what about my life do I need to kind of iron out? What have I been avoiding that's causing me this like mental distraction?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think, I mean, in a lot of ways, it can be an escape from that, right? Because when you're fighting for that send or that on-site, like, man, I love that feeling. But it's like you're so focused, and then, but God forbid you fall off. Because then then it's like, oh my God, I have all these problems in my life and I can't even climb this thing. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh my gosh. And like, and then you're like, you pull back on and you're like, oh, I just slipped. And then you realize actually it's hard for you because you fall off a couple more times, and then you're like, real, then you really lose it. Yeah, 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 totally.
You have a quote here. If you can't enjoy where you're at in climbing, you won't enjoy where you're going.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's kind of the grade chasing idea, and just the thing, and it can not even be grades. It can just be styles of climbing. Like I need to be a trad climber. I need to be a this climber, or that climber, or this grade climber, or I need to be climbing the alpine, and that's just never going to end. Like we just talked about, there's always going to be chances to go bigger, better, faster. And yeah. So I love that little saying. If you can't enjoy where you're at, you're not going to enjoy where you're going. And I don't think it quite works perfectly for life as well, because you can be in some shitty situations that just suck and you should get out of those. But yeah, for climbing, I think it fits. If you're not enjoying, having, yeah, having a hard time on the quote unquote warm ups or whatever with your friends at the crag, it's like, fix
Sending the
that
next
first.
grade isn't going to solve your
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, it's not going to solve it. Yeah, and I have people hit me up as an instructor. They're like, I need to be climbing 510 trad, and I'm like,
You're like,
okay,
what are you
sweet.
running from?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, sweet, give me your money, and then okay, why? Why do you need? No, but really, it's just like, why? Why do you like? What do you think is there? What do you think is there? Because I haven't pushed to the top of the sport. Of course, I've only gone as far as I've gone, but I didn't find anything there. And I feel so lucky to have lived my life in a way I really committed to this activity. I really dove in, and it let me kind of get to my high level. I think it's all relative, right? I was able to get to what was hard and high level for me. And it's just like, there's nothing really there. Um, and I think a lot of folks, they have lives and families or jobs or whatever, and they can't necessarily dive 1000% in and realize that, what they're chasing is maybe ultimately false, if that is what they're chasing. And, I think you see that a lot with like, I don't know, celebrities are like, really, you want to be a celebrity? Like, it's not what you think, or like, and that, yeah, people are, yeah, the grass is always greener and people are always struggling. But I feel lucky to have like driven to that point where I had to kind of start to peel back the layers and be like, okay, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? And what was I really trying to get out of this? And yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to like stake or put your happiness on a goal that you haven't reached yet, instead of accepting it for where it is currently.
Yeah,
It's like,
totally.
I'll be happy when I get here.
Yeah. And it's such
I'll be stoked when I get here. It's like,
it's such an addicting mindset, right? Because it gives you something to do, gives you something to work towards that gets you through the day-to-day monotony and stuff. And you're like, yeah, but if I get there, and then like I hope everyone gets there, because and maybe it does it for them. Maybe it all of a sudden everything clicks and it's all good, but I doubt it. I don't think I think that's how things are portrayed in the greater. I mean, again, this is like the human condition. And I think that's how we see action movies. It's just like, and then it's all, or like whatever, it's all happily ever after or whatever, or same in climbing media, and it's just like, yeah, but you'd
the
still,
YouTube video ends.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Our days keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe some people do, and I have certainly like, it's not to say I haven't gotten any benefit from these experiences, like having those achievements kind of on my resume, right? I work as an instructor and stuff, and it helps me psychologically when I get imposter syndrome to be like, hey, actually I got a pretty solid like climbing resume. Like I should be okay with, like sharing my knowledge and stuff, because it's like, oh, well, somebody's going to call me an idiot on Instagram and say I don't know anything, and so it has like helped me, you know, build myself up. So it's not, it's not totally empty, and it's had that long lasting effect. But yeah.
Yeah. You say that you're a human first and a climber second. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do I mean by that? Did I say that to you?
Not to me.
Andrew?
No.
Okay.
This is my research. I'm piecing together
Oh my
your
gosh,
words.
you're good,
I'm
man.
piecing together your words.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I was like, I was worried you were gonna ask me to like introduce myself, and it's like, and it makes, and I mean, that's kind of like a flippant answer. It's like, well, I'm a human being. It's like, yeah, we know that, but I feel like it's easy to be like, oh, I'm a, just labels, it's like I'm a trad climber, or like I'm a guide, and I'm a certified this and that, and I own a business, and I don't know. It's just it's a bit of it's a bit maybe of a like a bit of a spiritual nod, maybe. It's just like I'm a human being. That's pretty much all I'm convinced of. The rest is just kind of like impermanent, ever-changing stuff, and I think when we try and latch on, I think that's what I've been trying to do with a lot of accomplishment in adventure and in climbing, is kind of find some kernel of permanent self or truth, that I can be like, this is what I am. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. Scroll my Instagram feed, and that tells you who I am, because I'm the person who's done those things, and it's like, you're not, you're just kind of, I'm just sitting here talking to you. That's what I am,
Your identity isn't your tick list.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, when struggling to kind of like have a identity, I think that's, and it goes, way earlier than that, with like mountaineering and like, and just travel and adventure in general. Before it was really performance rock climbing, really, I was kind of like notching up this thing, like, oh, I did this cool thing, I did that cool thing, I can say I've done, and then I can just be like, when I'm in this existential dread of like, who the hell am I? What is going on? The idea is I can fall back on that and be like, okay, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. And, that's also, yeah, that's just, I think, gonna cause some suffering as well. Just trying to latch onto identity, because, like you said, right, it's like you're gonna age. You could get sick. You could have an accident. You're gonna lose these parts of yourself that really aren't parts of yourself. They're just some things that you've kind of told yourself are parts of yourself. Which is scary, because what happens when you lose them, right? You had an accident. I had an injury. And yeah, suddenly that gets really scary when it's not, you're actually losing your sense of identity, or your sense of, who you think you are. So yeah, like I'm convinced, yeah, I'm a human being. I breathe air, and the rest I'm figuring out,
Yeah. No, I think that's good. It's a healthy mentality. I think it's the same vein, but we can all just get so wrapped up in our identity as a climber and what we're doing as a climber. And that specific pursuit in a myopic sense, I think, is definitely fruitless.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You know, I was like, oh man, I'm talking to Kyle. It's like I'm not really like super stoked on climbing right now. Like I love climbing, right? But like I'm at a different phase in my life with climbing where I'm not doing all the rad shit and that I can't wait to like kind of humble brag about. You know, I'm kind of like in this other part where it's like, and I'm refiguring what climbing is for me now, you know, because it's like I've kind of decided I'm not right now, you know, I'm not going to keep putting in tons of work to keep improving. And so that means I'm probably gonna get worse. And you know, and it's like, okay, well, that's going to be a different relationship with this activity. So then what can this activity mean to me if it's not, because I think we do love the pursuit of progression. We love it. We love it so much. And I don't, you know, and that's something I've been really curious about, and I think is also just part of the human condition that we love that. And but I'm not getting that from climbing right now. And I could dip, you know, I've kind of dipped my toes into a lot of the different subsections of climbing. Like the one I haven't really is like hard aid, like nailing. So like I could probably get that feeling of progression improvement through that. But I think my relationship right now with climbing is just I'm getting something different from it, you know. And I have other aspects of my life where I'm getting more of the progression feeling. And I'd like to think that even if I'm not constantly progressing in my climbing, it's still a valuable pursuit and I can still enjoy it and learn from it. Um, you know, when I talk to climbers who were just always on the up and up and up and up and up, it's like, yeah, no shit, you're stoked out of your mind. You know, it's like I'm kind of more interested in the conversations with folks who've had setbacks or who are kind of like, oh, you know, just at different phases in their climbing and what they still get from it, what they still enjoy.
Every bubble bursts.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Hot Chili's Performance Apparel. Hot Chili's specializes in performance base layers that are soft, flexible, and super comfortable. And with winter right around the corner, it's time for you to start thinking about your base layers. Hot Chili's base layers strike the perfect balance between warmth, comfort, and flexibility. Made from an innovative fabric blend of polyester and spandex, they are designed to feel buttery soft like cotton, but provide all the benefits of performance material. Most importantly, their relaxed fit 4-way stretch makes Hot Chili's base layers ideal to wear every day. Plus, they are extremely breathable and moisture wicking. And there's a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it, try it, and if you still don't like it, they will give you your money back. Right now, you can get 15% off at Hot Chili's by going to the link in the description below and using TCM15 at checkout. That's hotchilies.com/TCM15 and TCM15 for 15% off at checkout.
I'd like to talk about risk. And I think, again, with this kind of structure of stories first, I'd love to hear your experience climbing with Brad Gobright on El Cap and how it influenced your perception of risk and risk management strategies at the time. So, talk to me about the story. Tell me your play-by-play with him on that day, and then let's dive into risk afterward.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. So I was, man, so this was about a month before he passed, I believe. And I don't know what year that was, but I was hanging around in the valley. At this point, I had climbed, you know, one route on El Cap, a pretty easy one, triple direct, which first is basically free blast into the middle of the muir wall and then like 2 independent pitches and then you finish on the nose. So it's a great way to like, it's not crowded, basically, and it's a great way to get up El Cap. So I had climbed like that El Cap route, and I was hanging around in the cafeteria with my friends, and Brad kind of famously was like looking for a partner, basically looking for a belay and jugging slave, and he was working on he wanted to free the nose in a day. He wasn't gonna, by my understanding, and we hung out one morning basically. So that's all I know of Brad is kind of my one morning with him and these little exchanges. But my understanding was he wasn't interested in doing it over multiple days. He was like doing it in a day, and he was looking for somebody to jug and belay him, you know. And all my friends who had not ever really climbed walls were like, "Yeah, me, I want to do that. I want to do that." And I like knew what was involved, and I was like, "I don't want to do that." Like that's
I know
so
what you're
much,
looking for.
Yeah, that's so much work, and I'm gonna have to like take 2 days off after that to like recover, and you know, and so I was just kind of like not interested. And then and everyone else didn't have any experience. So and so then Brad later like got my number from one of those friends and texted me. And at that point, all he knew about me, because I told him like how to meet up with me, I was like, oh yeah, I've got basically he said, oh, would you be down to just do adult run? So up, I don't know what it is, 11 pitches or something. And I was like, okay, sure. Like I'll do adult run with you. And he was like, oh yeah, let's meet in the morning here. And I was like, okay, sweet. My van's got Florida plates on it. So all he knew about me at that point was I had climbed triple direct and I was from Florida as far as he knew. I'm not from Florida, but and he's just like, yep, let's rope up. Like, let's go climb, El Cap basically. And yeah, so we met up in the morning, I made some joke about, I'm like, you're Alex, right? And I don't think that went over too well with him, but, and then, yeah, pretty much, we chat on the walk in, 15, 20 minutes to the base of the nose. And then we're off, he like, it's a bit of a scramble to where you're going to start the nose. And I think somebody had left like a haul bag hanging off a nut or something. And I was like a guide, like I kind of knew what was up. And I think he like clipped me to the nut or something. And he said something about like, oh, safety, clip you to this nut. And I was like, okay, and then he goes and and just runs it out like 50 feet into like 11 plus, insecure, finger, like those first pitches to aid climb are kind of tricky, and to free climb especially so. And then yeah, I was just riding Brad's heels for really the morning. It was pretty quick up to Dolt, and he was stashing some water, and man, that guy could fly up that rock, and it was really impressive. He really shrunk El Cap for me. It's like when you see someone performing on their stage, just to get a glimpse of that, it's just wow, it really changes your perspective on the whole activity. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, am I doing this all wrong? Should I be like running it out like that? And like, do you really only need to like fiddle a nut in here and there or what, And of course he's like a master of his craft, and that wasn't his first rodeo on out the nose, as we would all know. But, I was kind of like, in the wake of climbing with him, I was kind of just like, wow, that was a really big departure from how I go about climbing. And that's why I'm not Brad Gobright, right? And on our descent, and I, comically, like, he didn't know anything about me. He didn't know that I would have thought of myself as a pretty competent climber, pretty fast, Jumar, I'm pretty fast. I like jug like an absolute demon. It's something I've trained, and I was hoping to get some kind of like, hey, you don't actually suck from him or something like that, and I got nothing from him, which, fair enough. I mean, he's used to climbing with, the heroes of our sport. So, but yeah, and then on our descent, we were using a rope. It was an 80-meter rope that had been chopped at some point. And so he wasn't sure how long it was. We were simul wrapping. At one point he was wrapping down ahead of me, and he was like, oh, I didn't make it to the anchor, so I'm only on one bolt. If you want to stop at the anchor, and then pick me up or whatever, or we can just go off this one bolt. And I remember I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I literally said out loud, I was like, when in Rome. Like I've never wrapped off a single bolt, or would never do that. But I was just like, it's expert Halo, classically, this decision-making bias. It's like, well, or like not wanting him to think I'm a nerd or something, for like
Brad's doing it.
Yeah. And so we wrapped off a single bolt, and yeah, and I think, it would be pure speculation, but I think that's probably the rope he was using a month later when he, he had his accident. And, I would bet we weren't tying knots in both ends when I was simul wrapping with him, and a lot of people don't, right? And I think a lot of,
I think it's definitely circumstantial. I simul wrap a lot, and I don't think that it's like something you have to do every time. I think they're
do what? Pull up,
tie knots. It's not something that's like 100% must be done.
I think there's very few absolutes in climbing, which is what makes it so interesting and what makes the arguments in the Instagram tech tick comments so kind of like, I don't know, maybe in its best sense interesting, but everyone, feels very, strongly about things. Yeah, I would never say, there's very few absolutes for me, but I mean, we got the bodies, right? We got the bodies to prove, and I push and it's something I've taught free webinars on, something I've been doing, and pre-rigged rappels or stacked rappels as just kind of like the solution to this. Maybe a few seconds slower than simul rappel. I've wrapped with a client down 25 pitches in Mexico, and we're done in, I don't remember my time, but like it's fine. It's a couple hours. It's no big deal. And the beauty of a pre-rigged rappel, and like do your own research, but you actually only need a knot in one of the ends. So classically, when we rig a rappel, we poke the end through, we tie a knot. I would recommend clipping that to yourself so it doesn't blow somewhere weird. And then you pull the rope, and then that other end falls down beautifully down the pitch perfectly, but it doesn't have a knot in it. And what do we all do? We're like, okay, pinky promise, we just won't wrap off the end, right? And that's how we end up with these accidents, right? And so by doing a pre-rigged rappel, you don't actually have to pull up that end. It's fine to just block the one. And again, do your own research. I'm not going to be able to describe it all, but yeah. So I think simul wrapping, it's something I've done a lot of, and I think I've pretty much fully switched to stacked rappels, even in my personal climbing. And recommend people look into it and really think like if you're wrapping a 4-pitch route, it's like, come on, you don't need the speed. You don't need those 3 extra seconds, or like even, wrapping the 25 pitches. It's like, I can take 20 minutes longer on 25 pitches or whatever. And it's not, it's doubling the risk. If we look at risk as the equation of risk equals probability.
There's 2 bodies instead of 1 for a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. We've doubled the consequence by simul rappelling. And again, I'm not some armchair nerd that's just like, don't simul rappel or whatever. I've done it a ton, and it's a useful tool. It can be a really useful tool if you're searching for rappel stations and one of you goes a little bit too far and the other stays a little high. You can counterbalance yourselves back up. So it can be a useful tool, but yeah. Anyway, it's a very talked about subject.
Back to Brad on his effect on your risk management strategies in the moment.
In the moment right there, I mean, I just threw it all out the window. To be perfectly honest, I'm not proud of that. And I don't think I was a certified rock guide at the time, but I am now. But I was certainly a working guide, and usually the leader in my climbing parties, or kind of would take that role, and I just given it all up basically. I think maybe other people do that too sometimes when they perceive somebody as having more status, or maybe they're a hard climber in the gym and then you go outside and then you just kind of offload everything onto them. And I did it too. I saw it firsthand for myself and own that. But, cause it would have cost really nothing for me to stop at the proper belay station and move through. But, pretty much that day, I mean, I don't think we spent even quite 6 hours together, going up to Dolt and back down to the ground, so he could stash water. But it did make me consider, it was totally a different angle on risk than I was used to. And it made me wonder if I was just playing the game way overly safe. I still have never had any accidents or anything. And, a month later I kind of got my answer, in a morbid way. And it didn't change how I was, it changed how I was behaving in that moment, kind of under his, just aura of oh my gosh, this guy's incredible. And I kind of want to fit in, and I want, that sort of stuff. But ultimately I didn't start trying to be Brad Gobright, cause I never could. But yeah, it was such an interesting insight. And it was incredible. I feel so lucky. I mean, I simuled behind Brad Gobright in the stove leg cracks. How freaking cool is that? It's that's amazing. And I was friggin' flying, and yeah, mantled up onto Dolt, and he kind of had nothing to say to me.
You're like, please, something. You're like
like,
wagging your tail. You're like, please.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that was pretty good, right? Like I'm from Florida. Like, that's it. Like, come on.
Give
like,
this Florida alligator boy some props.
Yeah, totally. I was like, give me something.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
On this topic of risk and risk management, why do you feel like, I would say I don't know if it's common or not, but why do we take on unnecessary risk for a grade, ascend, or an on-site, or whatever the reason might be?
Man, I think we don't know we're doing it in the moment, really. I think when you get into that space, like you're in it, you're on the climb, you're in the moment there, you're not really considering actually how hazardous like the activity you're doing is, right? And I think that's a part of it. You're not really aware. Um, and I think we get away with a lot in climbing, and so that kind of colors our understanding of the risks. It's like it's not the most forgiving sport for sure, but there's, other activities that are certainly less forgiving. And I think we get kind of these, what would it be, like a false positive, right? Of where like we run it out and we get away with it. We run it, we punch through the crux to the good hold and we get away with it, over and over and over again. But it kind of only takes the once. And I think we just kind of get caught up in the moment, and we don't quite understand maybe all the risks. I see it all the time where climbers are pushing their grade on gear, and it's like their feet are like 2 feet above a piece, which is already like that's a fall. If you don't take that fall skillfully, that's going to be bad, right? Especially if it's on a lower angle climb, right? And then the next piece is like way below that. And it's like, man, if you fall skillfully, you'll be okay. But if that piece pops, which gear pops, it happens. Well-placed gear pops. I mean, I'm not trying to fearmonger, but it like
no, it's important.
There's an element of chaos here, right? And let alone gear popping. What's on that cam? A wire gate. When do we trust our life to a single wire gate carabiner?
Ever.
We try to never, but I mean, we do, right? The first bolt on a sport climb can be, after or before a big run out. That can be a really key piece. And so like, it's like, oh man, I'm sitting there, I'm kind of like gripped because I can tell this is kind of challenging for them. But they're not really stacking the odds for themselves, and it's like when I climb stuff that's challenging for me, I mean, I'm putting in a lot of gear, I'm doubling things up. I'm building a whole system. So that something can fail. It's funny, when we first talked on the phone, I'd pulled one piece of gear in my climbing career. A bit of an update on that. I've now pulled 3 pieces of gear in total. But all of that's been totally benign.
Because of the systems you've placed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. It's like, and part of that can be luck. I'm not going to say that I'm just like the best, I'm the most skilled at managing these risks or whatever, but it's like, yeah, the piece pops and then I fall 6 more inches onto the one that's backing it up, or I fall further, but it's all clean or whatever it is. And I think we maybe don't see that in climbing media, or we think that's sewing it up. I've posted videos of students on our more advanced trad climbing course, and they're climbing their first 5.9 trad lead, and people are commenting and they're like, why are they placing so much gear? And I'm like,
why not?
Screw you.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so rude.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what like, recalibrate your brain. This is what, maybe it's not what it should look like. I don't want to project that, but it's like, this is what climbing can look like, and I think it's a really smart way to go for longevity. You know what I mean? I know people that don't climb like that. I know people that place the one piece of gear, and it's like a lot of those people who place the one piece of gear, you can ask them about their accidents and you can ask them about their near misses, right? And they'll tell you them.
Well, I think it's all directed, it's all vented around your confidence in the movement. It's like, yes, I'll climb a 5.8 and I'll place 2 pieces in 60 feet. And then I'll hop on an 11B and I'll place 5 pieces in 20 feet.
Yeah.
Totally. It's like, that's the skill of climbing. That's the skill of trad climbing, is knowing your, like, there's like this percentage in my brain of like how connected I am to the wall.
Totally.
And it's like when that percentage starts going really high, like, wow, I'm like 90% going to come off. I'm plugging cams in.
Yeah, for sure.
And when it's like 0%, I'm going to keep them on my rack. It's like, that's the relationship we need to build with ourselves. It's not like, oh, just place less gear. Oh, just sew it up. It's like, there's this dance, there's this eloquent kind of understanding we have.
Yeah, I'm a fan of like kind of the idea of having two pieces between you and the hospital. Like I like that idea. I think we can't really always do that necessarily, but if we expand that to be one of those pieces can be movement, right? So let's say you're just locked in on 5-6. Okay, so one piece is my movement, and then the other piece is that one piece down there, and then as the climbing gets harder, okay, no longer can I rely on my movement because I'm not, for your terms, like not as connected to the rock. So now I need, two pieces in, two pieces that are actually going to do something. It's like two pieces having a fall that I'm down to take. It's not like, well, it's that one, and then it's like, well.
There's like 15 feet before the next one.
Yeah, and like, place the gear. Get into the crux and place in the middle of the crux. Do it. Okay, maybe you ruined your send of this one pitch. Who cares? You're surviving, and then also you're gaining those skills to be able to place under duress on the next route. It's like, okay, yeah, ideally you're not placing in the middle of the crux because that's not efficient movement wise. But guess what? When you move to the next grade, more of the climbing is going to feel like crux, and you're going to have to place in it, right? So you're just building the skills for later. And yeah, you blow it, you fall off, whatever, cool, nice, good go, way to stay safe. And I think, yeah, we celebrate when we punch it through and we get away with it. We get hoots and hollers, we get, pats on the back, and really we should be, did I get away with that, or did I masterfully execute? And I'm not saying you can't like try to the point of like maximum effort. I love that. That's like my favorite thing. But yeah, you should have some gear in, when you're doing that, and the beauty, I mean, the curse of it all is like, hey, when you climb harder grades, it's like the falls are cleaner, you can fall a bit further. And I mean, I think that's such an amazing feeling when on-siting trad climbing is you're doing all these calculations all at once, and like, do I need to place again? Is this fall clean? This fall is clean. Just go for it. Execute, and then like you put a piece in. How good is that piece? Do I need to double up? And it's all live. It's all happening. It's all like just so visceral and in your face. And I think in this day and age, not a lot of things are that like that. We don't. I mean, our life is a lot online. It's stuff on a screen, and it's like we don't feel the consequences of it. But then in that moment, it's just like, that's living, and something I would encourage people to do is engage with falling. Like, I'm not being so explicit as like fall. Like, I'm just saying like engage with it, like practice it, explore it, in some sort of controlled way. Because how do you know if you're going to hit that ledge or how far that fall is? You take falls. You start to build a repertoire of, okay, if I fall, 30 feet away from my belayer and I'm clipped above me, okay, I actually fall 5 feet. Whoa, that's surprising. I didn't think that. I thought I was on a top rope. And then you fall above that and you fall, and just start it to build or maybe, if my center of mass is to the right of my last piece of gear, okay, then now there's a swinging component. And, falling's terrifying when it's the unknown. And the more we can start to chip away at that, I think we get safer because we know how to fall. There's a skill to falling, especially outdoors, especially on not overhanging stuff. Like if you're falling on a 5-7, you're probably contacting the rock as you're moving down. And so there's a skill to that. And you can gain an understanding and start to master that art, and at least have some data to go off instead of like, I think falling's okay. Everyone says try until you fall or whatever. And Tommy says he's taken like 600-foot falls on El Cap, so this should be fine, and it's like, no, you gotta like, and that's so scary. It's either scary or you're completely disassociating, and if you can engage with falls. I'm not scared of fall. I fall probably more than any guide in America on like client belays. I fall every time I'm out with somebody. I was teaching lead rope sewing today and I was falling because I'm showing the system. I'm showing how it works. We're talking about why did I fall this far? How did I move my body through the air? All that sort of stuff. And I'm still scared of the falls that I don't have experience with. If I'm up and to the side, I haven't done that fall a lot. And so it's scary for me. And it's all just about building that data and doing it in a smart way and not in a way that, okay, I have to climb above the gear and jump off. That's fall practice. No, be below the gear, fall off. Every step should be boring. And the gym is not a great teacher for this because you're only climbing overhanging walls in the gym. That's not necessarily the best teacher for learning how to fall outside but yeah, that's an encouragement to folks. I see people practice falling. They just go above stuff. They go falling, and then they fall. It doesn't go very well, and now they're more scared, more terrified. They learn nothing. Now they have a fear injury, and they're kind of holding themselves back.
Now, what about like actual practical application towards like on-sighting routes or climbing trad routes? Because for me, this whole topic of like not falling, you're not trying, has been like a very kind of main thread in my climbing for the last year, because I've been pushing climbing harder than I ever have, and so it's like falling is definitely a part of it. I can't avoid it, but basically what I've come to the understanding here with my own climbing is that I will never choose to fall. I'm never going to like let go of the wall and say falling. Like if I get to a place where I think I'm pumped out, I'm just like breathing crazy, and I'm like I'm not performing well, and I know that like the chances of me successfully doing the crux are really low, I'm going to put a piece in, I'm going to calm down, I'm going to relax my nervous system, and then I'm going to go for it with a calm head and good gear and just punch it and like be okay with the chance that I could come off. And I do fall, but the only times I do fall are if my foot pops or like a hold breaks or something. Like those are the situations where I'll actually fall. And that's kind of like the mentality that I've been developing and that I've been kind of like promoting, at least with my own social group. Like, talk to me about that mentality and kind of how you see, like, maybe it's a limiting belief. Like, how do you see that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think anyone should base their relationship on falling on what anything anyone like I'm going to say or like anyone says, right? Because yeah, I enjoy falling. I enjoy climbing to my limit and falling off. And that's a way I enjoy engaging with the sport. But it doesn't mean that somebody else who's not doing that is doing the sport wrong at all, and I think especially when we're a lot of like younger people that are maybe are a bit more risk tolerant or have other, are willing to engage with that, it's going to be different than people from different walks of life or different ages or et cetera. And to say, you should be climbing this way or that way is insane. And we shouldn't, make people feel bad about how they're engaging with the sport. I think if you are trying to improve, like, you're gonna bump into falling, right? For my climbing, falling's a part of climbing. I don't care if people choose to engage with the sport the same way. I think if they are going to engage with falling or have that be a possibility, they should kind of study falling like how I just described and understand it. Otherwise, you're just playing with, you have no clue what game you're even playing. You're just playing with fire and you don't know what could even happen. Yeah, I mean, I fall. And something along what you said, like, you don't fall basically intentionally is what
intentionally. I'll never like let go of the wall and say falling.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Sure. Yeah. I think I've actually have examples of accidents where people do fall intentionally, and there's kind of actually, I think your accident I listened to your episode.
That's exactly the same. That's what I did.
You dropped off, right?
That's what I did.
And there's a lot of examples of those leading to accidents. So I think that's a totally valuable way to look at it, right? If you let go, you're giving up any sort of control you have, possibly. I don't know. I'm not that strict like that. I've certainly, I've been on climbs where I'm just like really tired and I know I'm not going to really make the next move and I just kind of fall off. But again, it's knowing that fall's safe, knowing, or it's not knowing, because it's not nothing, none of this is 100%.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. That's an
it's
important.
stacking the odds in your favor, right? It's like, hey, I know I had two good pieces going into this crux. I know based on thousands of falls I've taken or whatever it is, tens of falls, that this fall fits into, that I'm going to be, it's steep enough or whatever, the wall's clean enough. Okay, I think my feet are going to be touching the wall as I come down, but there's no ledge, so I'm just going to keep kind of stepping. I'm not going to jump off. I'm just going to step down the wall. And so I think it can be totally benign. But yeah, if you're looking at that fall you're unfamiliar with or whatever, it's like, yeah, definitely place the piece and take or clip to the piece, right? It's like, it's and to your point, to your question, like sure that can hold you back if this send was going to be the first of the grade. It's for you. It's like, okay, you held yourself back 2 climbing days or something, because you'll get it done. Like it's not, it's a lifetime of climbing that you're going to do. Right. And it's all going to, it feels in that moment that that's the one climb that matters, and man, if I could just on site my first whatever number, like that's going to be so cool. And yeah, it will be so cool, but it'll have like, it doesn't matter. It's not worth taking the risk for that to be today. And when you can maybe you'll get on a climb tomorrow that's a little more in your wheelhouse, or maybe you're more comfortable with the style of the fall or the gear or whatever it is. And, to push it just because, some, floating head on the internet said, if you're not falling, you're not trying, I mean, yeah. Yeah. So I know that's a tough one. You have to like have some nuance with it, like what you're, how you're thinking about it. And
It's just been a superpower for me. Like, especially after the accident, like falling and injuring myself again was basically a non-negotiable. I'm just like, been through it once, do not want to do it again, cannot afford it financially or physically, like cannot let that happen again. So it's like, what am I going to do? That to me, this is the safest way I can move forward and become a better climber. And I'm a way stronger climber than I ever have been before the accident with this new mentality. And so it's been such a key for me.
I mean, I can't climb well without confidence. I'm a horrible free soloist because as soon as I'm not that confident, right? And it's just like, I just turn to absolute mush. I can't move. I can't think. I can't anything as soon as that comes in, right? So I place the gear and then I try so hard,
Yeah.
right? I try so hard. And if I don't place that gear, I'm not trying that hard. And so it's a trade-off, it's like, yeah. I've climbed, well, it's all relative numbers wise, but I think it's easy to hear people say like, oh, I placed lots of gear. And then you're like, well, you can't climb hard doing that, and it's like to flatter myself a little, like I've on-sighted, I guess I flashed 12D on gear, placing lots of gear, right? Placing lots of gear. And it's like, okay, then it's like, well, you could climb 13B on gear if you ran it out. And it's like, definitely not,
Mm-hmm.
And I climb with people all the time that choose to play the game differently. And they, and they're not, they're plenty strong, like their names you would recognize. But like they're just playing the game different than I am. And that's okay. They can do it that way. And like, you hear their stories and stuff and you're like, yeah, that's not the life I want to live,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, man, what if, the positive power of negative thinking, right? It's not the positive thinking. It's not, I can do this. Just believe in yourself. It's no, negative thinking. What can go wrong? Okay, how am I going to mitigate that risk? This is Will Gadd's. I've heard it from Will Gadd, famous, ice climber and kayaker, paraglider pilot, rock climber, guide. The positive power of negative thinking. Think about what can all go wrong and how are you managing those things. If you're not doing that, you're just kind of making it up and getting away with it, And I get a lot of confidence from thinking like that. Like it sounds like you are. That's allowing you to kind of to climb harder because you are placing the gear or playing it conservatively, and it's giving you comfort on a rope, comfort on these walls. It's giving you the confidence to get on climbs that are challenging for you, and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, yeah, I've seen people break their legs showing off on 5-6, and it's like, that's dumb. and of course they agree with it too. They think it's dumb too, but it's like, you could have just stayed healthy for 6 months and you wouldn't even look at the 5.6. You would be, you would be warming up on 5.7 or
I
whatever.
definitely
So,
see like a disparity between people who have had a climbing accident and people who have not. There's definitely like this kind of conversation we're talking about and this mentality towards safety. I feel like that particular event is a huge cliff for people kind of like stepping on the other side and be like, okay, I'll bring a triple rack for this. It's like,
yeah,
and it's
totally.
like, I wish we could just like convey this information to people, but it's just so hard, man. It's like, you can tell someone 1,000 times to do something and they're going to do what they're going to do. And some people have to learn the hard way. And it's just unfortunately with climbing, some people don't get to learn the lesson at all because you die or you are horrifically maimed or you go through a traumatic injury and it's just like so avoidable.
Or a fear injury, right? You just like maybe you get away with it, but you're like, oh my God, that was so scary.
I will never
and
climb
like,
again. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think a lot of people take, again, there's the people, and usually they're, let's be real, it's often young men that are kind of like being a little show offy and or maybe kind of like trying to take shortcuts or whatever. But there's also people engaging with the sport and that are um just kind of unaware, like there's just missing gaps in their knowledge about, how some of this stuff works or like, yeah, how far you fall or like, yeah, how much the rope stretches or like, and that's why I think it's so important to try and engage with falling early and often in your climbing career. If that's the path if you're going to potentially engage with that on your own, it's like, hey, it doesn't have to be a part of your climbing, but you have to kind of know the game that you're playing. Because if you're running it out 10 feet and you've never taken a fall that's like 3 feet above your gear, you have no clue what's going to happen to you. You have no clue the game you're playing. Have no clue how your life's going to change if you break that hold. And sadly, like there's lots of examples of insanely good rock climbers, even losing their lives, breaking a hold on 5.6, running it out, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you had a quote here that's really good. It said, "Climbing isn't a sport that you get the choice to be bad at."
Oh, interesting.
I really like that statement you made.
Interesting, man. I would ask me to say more about that.
But with climbing, it's like you, at least with the safety systems, you have to know what the fuck you're doing, or you can kill yourself on a 5.6, a 5.4. You can kill yourself scrambling. Like you can kill yourself rappelling. It's like, it's not a sport where you can choose to be bad at it in that sense.
Yeah. And not necessarily bad at the physical movement aspect. Like, yeah, you can be, it's like you can't be bad at understanding the systems and like, yeah, you can't be relying on other people to get you out of trouble or you can't be bad at placing gear. Like you can be, quote unquote bad at movement, and that's all relative, right? But like you gotta put the good gear in, and you gotta, yeah, understand the game you're playing. Yeah, that's. I think that quote holds out. Yeah,
for sure. There's another one here. It says, "We all make mistakes, but do we catch them all?"
Oh, totally. 100%.
I really resonate with that one. I think it's like you I don't even know how to say this, but like you don't really know if a cam's going to hold or a piece is going to hold until you fall on it. Like maybe you made a mistake. Maybe that piece wasn't as good as you thought. Maybe there was moss that you didn't see. Maybe there was like moisture you didn't see, or maybe one of the lobes was flaring and you didn't catch it. It's like those are mistakes that we miss that sometimes are inconsequential because we didn't actually fall on the piece or we didn't actually test the safety system. And so we'll never know. And that's one funny, actually, there's one thing that's great about me filming all my routes is I literally go back and watch the routes to make the videos. And so I get to analyze every single placement that I make. And sometimes I'm just like, that is fucked. What the hell?
Yeah, totally.
Like that piece wasn't good. And so I get this like secondhand knowledge all the time, which has been very helpful.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's easy when we hear about mistakes people make or accidents. We're like, I would never do that, or like, and I think that's really dangerous. And I think the reality is we're all animals. We're all humans. We all make mistakes, and we make mistakes often for the stupidest reasons. We're hungry. It's getting dark. it's, you know, whatever. And then suddenly we just start to turn the pace up on things, and we risk death. You know, in our sport, we risk death. And when, you know, normally, you know, when you're hanging around with your friends and you get hungry, you just like get a little hangry or whatever. You get a little, you respond to people a little snappier, right? And but yeah, we will all make mistakes. In any accident report you've read, like that's you know, and you could be that, right? And I think that's a really good, like really truly believing that you can make those mistakes, um, and knowing you can is a great counter to complacency, you know. And I think when you've been climbing, when you're a beginner, everything's really scary, and so you're quadruple checking your carabiners and stuff, right? And then there's kind of like this maybe intermediate, and maybe you never leave this intermediate phase or something where um yeah, maybe you start to feel like you kind of got it figured out, you're doing kind of bigger things, but man, it's just doesn't take much. Like it, you know, people are, you know, people often ask, you know, non-climbers are like, oh, have you had any near-death experiences? And I'm like, yeah, 9.2 millimeters, you know, that's the rope, right? It's, we're always near
Yeah.
death, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's like, um, yeah, and I've started to get to a part in my climbing where I'm scared. I'm like scared and paranoid again. You know, it's just kind of like I'm doing this a lot. I'm doing this a lot, but I'm not doing it every single day. Kind of like I was when I was in like the van life, climb sort of situation. Which I think you're so current and fresh, that it you still are, of course, possible to make mistakes, but you're so current.
You're like
To
hyper aware of everything.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, now I'm like, yeah, I've got other stuff going on. I'm climbing here, you know, and now I'm kind of like perked up again. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is, you know, it's like I really do need to check this stuff, and you know, check your systems and be a little paranoid. Okay, yeah, it's gonna, maybe it holds you back, but like it's gonna keep you in the game a lot longer. And yeah, you know, it won't, if you're observant, it won't take you long. And I bet a lot of climbers have had these experiences where they're just like, oh, that's actually not clipped, or you
Yep.
know,
Gate's
whatever it
not
is.
locked.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
for
you
sure.
you only clipped one strand for your rappel.
Totally. That's one that gets people. I've had where I, you know, me personally, when I wrapped my prusik, when I went to clip the auto block back to the carabiner, I kind of missed. And then I wrapped down and I let go and it held. And then I'm watching it, you know, unwind or whatever, right? But it's just like stuff like that. And it's like, and yeah, it's good to be aware. You know, when I teach some my big wall course, that one's I'm packing a lot of information into 2 days. Me as an instructor, I'm like I am just flying all over the place, rigging scenarios and stuff, and I take a lot of risk to provide a lot of that value. And that's where I've had personal kind of like near misses. And I, you know, when I'm just rigging weird things, it's not stuff you're ever going to find in a book, or like you don't get taught how to rig these scenarios as a guide, you know. And you know, I'll tell
What
people
happened?
like, so that one was the one I'm thinking of. I was using like traditional sewn pocketed daisies, and when I like clipped into a station, the daisy was sitting through the carabiner, so it looked like it was clipped, but actually the pocket wasn't clipped on the daisy. It was just literally like you took the daisy and like poked it through the locked carabiner, you know? And so I was kind of doing stuff on this ledge, and then I just watched the daisy fall out of the carabiner. And it's like, whoa, shit, you know? And there's lots of, you know, you could say like, well, you should have loaded that system before you moved your old system. And it's like, sure, fair enough. Um, you know, that absolutely would have helped that. But yeah, when you're bustling, hurrying around and trying to, um, you know, in my case, like provide a lot of value for people and pack a lot into a day, and yeah, you're liable to make mistakes. And I often tell people, you know, when I teach SPI courses and stuff, I'm like, hey, everyone has the right to say stop, what's going on, you know, what's going on here, even if it's me, you know, I'm the instructor, I know everything, right? And it's like, no, even if it's me, if I'm doing something and you think like, wait, Kevin, that's the like line that's just on the bush that you were showing, you know, it's like everyone has veto power, everyone can say stop, pause, like what's going on here, you know? Especially with those courses, because it's like it's kind of a lot of beginners trying like new technical systems on each other. And so um but
That's one thing that's been really nice with my partnership with my climbing partner Bryce is we were both very vocal about like, hey, I don't know if that piece looked really good. You want to double check that? Or, hey, I think you might need to extend that. Or, hey, rope's running weird behind your leg. Like, just it's like, I'm watching you. You
Yeah,
know, like
totally.
we're watching each other, and like we're gonna make mistakes, but if we work as a team to constantly watch for those things, we're gonna keep each other alive.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think those are really valuable partnerships. I don't like climbing with people where I feel like I'm the brakes on everything. They're just like the charging bull, and I'm constantly being like, like, is that enough gear? Or like, is the rope long enough for the descent? Or like, it feels like I'm doing all the like worrying, It's like, well, what if I miss something? Then it means like we're just screwed, It's like you kind of want to have, yeah, you want to find somebody that, they're looking out for some things because you're going to miss things and you're looking out for things. I hate being the brakes on on some kind of charging bull, I mean those climbing relationships don't really last for me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this, so to close out this topic of risk, I've got these two quotes I'm workshopping right now. I want to see what you think about these. So they're both kind of like cousins of each other. The first one is, it's better to move with a mindset of a soloist and be saved by your gear than to rely on your gear like bolts and to be betrayed by them. And then there's a second one to this. It's like the same thing, but phrased in a different way. I'd rather over respect the danger and be surprised by safety than under respect it and pay the price.
Ooh, yeah, I like both of those. Um, it's tough. Move like a soloist. I and be surprised by the safety. Yeah. I don't know.
Obviously, it's a bit dramatic. I mean, we can't
Yeah,
always pretend that we're soloing, but it's
right.
like I'm trying to encapsulate this mentality of like movement is number one and like safety's number, or like our systems are number two. I guess that's what I'm trying to actually like talk
Yeah,
about, and
I
maybe
mean
that's
that's
misfounded.
I don't know. And again, I think like if that's working for you, you should run with it. I might push back on it a little bit in that I don't think that's how I've climbed, like in the mindset. There's no way I'd be climbing, you know, the grades I'm climbing if I'm moving as a soloist, and I think instead of, and this is just, friendly pushback,
Yeah,
instead
for
of being
sure.
surprised by the safety system, it's like, let's experiment with it so that it's not a surprise, or like, what's the odds that piece rips? We can never know, like you said, until you fall on it. And even then, you only know it held that first fall. You can fall on it again and it can pull, right? If you fall on a piece, back it up, by the way. Like if you've already taken the fall once, it's like you blew your send, back it up. Like that can still pop when you fall on it the seventh
I
time,
always tell
right?
my partner if he ever falls, I'm like, hey, is your piece still good?
Yeah,
Is your
no, that's
knot
smart.
still good?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I've seen
let's
it where
check our
they
system.
they
Yeah.
pop on fall seven or whatever. But I think there can be, we don't. Yeah, I would lean more towards kind of what I was saying earlier with like if we engage with falling and we understand, the more we understand the systems and the possible lengths of the fall and stuff, and understand that, yeah, that piece can pop, but if it does, okay, right, that piece is allowed to pop. It's like I'm not threading the margin that that piece has to hold for me to be okay. And so then, I can move into terrain where I might fall off and move without not like a soloist and fall off, or even take falls for fun, um, because because it won't be a surprise to me when things work, or if they don't work, it won't be a surprise to me if that top piece does pop. And it's like, oh, I took the ride to the next one, but it was all clean. Or it won't be a surprise to me if I do unfortunately clip my ankle on that little edge that's sticking out in an unskillful falling movement, right? That's a possibility, certainly, Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think that's a little bit the leader shall not fall mentality, which I see a lot of people that climb like that, and I think of them as, I could literally call them free solo trad climbers, right? They're carrying all the gear, they're
Yeah.
using the rope. The gear they place is terrible because they never
Mm.
tested it or whatever, and they're just climbing easy stuff, but should they ever actually fall, like it's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible situation, so So I don't know. I think and this is the beauty. It's always a gray area. There's no black and white with all this stuff. So I think there's absolutely merit to, the idea you're putting across where, as soon as you're falling, you're out of control. And you've had different climbing experiences than I have to lead you to that conclusion, right? You mentioned earlier, I've been lucky to not have a climbing accident, and so that could color my perspective, right? And that's kind of the interest in climbing. It's like we can read the textbook and then we have our own experiences that color how we make certain decisions. And that's going to change over time. And we're each going to make those decisions different ways. And because I'm going to weigh this possible outcome more, and based on your experience, you're going to weigh this possible outcome more. So you're going to choose to make this change to the system, where I'm going to choose to prefer instead whatever else. And that's why there's no right answer to, well, what's the best way to like build an anchor, or like what's the best, it's like, well, it's always going to depend. So
no, it's cool. It's great insight. No, and I think it's definitely it's going to be an ever evolving mentality. I think it's definitely linked towards experience and skill and stuff. So I'll be interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's be real for a second. The current blueprint for a successful climbing podcast is simple. Interview the best climbers in the world. Big names mean big followings, lots of SEO power, and a built-in audience that helps boost every episode. But this show has never been about that. From the beginning, I have made it my mission to bring you stories from the climbing majority. The climbers who don't live in the limelight. The ones who avoid interviews, quietly put up routes, and give back in ways that are rarely recognized. And while that's what makes this show special, it also means we have an uphill battle when it comes to growth. And that is where you come in. If you're psyched about the show, if you've been inspired, entertained, or fired up about an episode, word of mouth is the single most important way you can help the show. Share an episode with a friend. Play one on a group road trip. Post about the show on social media. Jump onto Reddit threads and Mountain Project forums and share with people what you've been listening to. Be sure to tag the show, tag your favorite guests, and spread the word. And if you want to help even more, I'm currently sending posters to climbing gyms around the country. If you'd like to sport one in your climbing gym, be sure to reach out. Email me at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com, and I will be sure to send you one. Let's band together and show the climbing community that the climbing majority has a voice.
So you've gone 7 years in a van as a dirtbag, chasing performance, almost becoming a professional athlete in a way. You can put that in air quotes if you'd like. To having climbing kind of take a back seat. You've seen a lot of climbing along the way. And honestly, if we're looking at your tick list and kind of you've built kind of an illustrious climbing resume along the way. And I'd love to dive into some of these stories.
Yeah.
Some of these actual stories. And so I have a list here. I don't know on the how they are chronological, and I don't know if that actually matters.
Yeah, I don't know if I know.
Okay, we'll just go the list that I have now. So, I read the reports on all these. I have, a general idea of what these stories were. And so, I'm honestly, this is just a chance for the audience to hear these stories from your perspective and to get a kind of a glimpse into who you are as a climber, not necessarily to extract any sort of meaning or anything out of these. So totally story time. First one is the rope solo of Oh So Scary, which I thought was a fucking hilarious name, considering the circumstances of your descent. So talk to me about that.
So this is in the Wind River Range, which was a place that I showed up at. And as soon as I set foot there, I was like, I'm going to spend a lot of time here. This is rad, and the beauty of living that lifestyle is I just did, so there was this, so I spent like a month there with some friends, and then they were moving on and doing other things. And I kind of got invited by some lovely people we met to join them on a trip. And just my nature, I was just like, no, I'm going to do something on my own. And just kind of like, that's just, I don't know. I'm an introvert, and ultimately, and like, so I looked for kind of an experience a challenge I could undertake on my own. And somebody had Matthew Hartman, I believe, Matthew Tipton. Dang, I'm missing his name, but he did a, as free as can be rope rack shirt on your back route up this this pretty minor feature, to be honest, Sundance Pinnacle in the Wind River Range, and you put it on Mountain Project as like a C1. Oh, we couldn't free the crux, the crux or whatever. And I was like, oh, sweet, maybe I'll see if I could get that done. Basically free that line. And so I spent overall, I think it was like 10 days or maybe it was 2 weeks in total of from like having this idea to like getting it done. And I mostly worked on it top down. I cleaned and like found the line and everything. And then ultimately rope soloed the first descent. I did like a bit of a variation to one of the pitches, but they didn't want any bolts to be put on, which it didn't need any bolts. Nobody's probably going to ever repeat it because it's pretty exciting. It's a lot of like fiddly gear. And I had the luxury of hanging around on a rope and figuring it out and brushing all the holds and had kind of like piece by piece beta. But yeah, I think ultimately it was like 4 pitches or something, like 5'9", 12A, 5'11", something, 12 plus, 10 plus, something like that. And then, yeah. And so I did it, and like the crux was pretty hard for me. It's very steep, which is not my style. And I remember when I was doing it, I had mapped out all this beta, and it was this roof, and I was going to be kind of in a layback in a corner under the roof, place a piece in the roof, clip it, and then kind of punch out the last, not the crux. The crux was right below that move, but like definitely you're pumped and wailing. And from my layback position, actually for real leading, I couldn't reach to place that piece. And so I placed it in the corner, like under the roof. And then it's just like, oh man, now this is a bad fall, because I'm not protected in the roof. I'm protected, before the roof. And so it's it's definitely not going to be a good fall. But I've worked these moves on top rope. I know exactly the sequence I'm about to do. And so I was like banshee screaming through that. And of course, again, I mentioned how hard work it is rope soloing. I had climbed all the pitches leading up to there, but I've also rappelled them and then jugged back up them. And so yeah, I was pretty pumped on that. And like, man, that was a moment I wish I shared with somebody, to be honest. But then if I shared it with somebody, it wouldn't be the moment that it was. But anyway, so then I top out, and I actually feel good about topping this one out. Surprise, surprise from my story earlier, but this one actually felt good. And I was kind of just like floating. I was feeling good as I was walking down the descent. There was other people climbing kind of like this 5'7", I think, classic, which I hadn't seen anybody for weeks being out there. And I'd like shout down because I kind of want to talk about what I just did. And so I'm like, how's it going? They're like, oh, good. I'm like, what you climbing? And they're like, whatever. And I'm like, cool. And they're like, what'd you guys climb? And I was like, oh, it's just me. I did the first free. I rope soloed the first free. And they're like, okay. And I was like, okay, and then I'm on the descent, and I've walked down this peak many times because I've been walking up it to fix a rope, and I'm scrambling down this kind of rock band. It's not vertical, but I'm kind of face out scrambling. And I just hear one of the loose rocks kind of rolling behind me. So I look over my shoulder, and not 3 feet away is a bear. A bear. It's not a rock rolling at me. It's a bear out of the bush. It's just, I'm face out kind of crab style on this little rock band, and it's just bear. And I just immediately, you have no time.
Oh, you just
to
run away.
I just launch off this little, I land in Talus, and I'm just scream, just like, oh, fuck, bear, and I just was talking to these guys up there. And so now they're hearing this, and I can't imagine their perspective on this. But, and the bear is just chasing me.
Holy
right.
shit.
And so like, I must have scared it initially, right? And then it scared the shit out of me. And so I just start running down this mountainside to get to my camp, and it's chasing me. And it's like, I don't know, like time gets weird in these things. I don't know how long it was, but it was long enough where I'm like, kind of like, this sucks. I'm running from like the bear is chasing me. I'm running from the bear, and I get to the next little like cliff thing, and I just kind of like scooch and jump off of it, and I'm just kind of crashing into the talus, but still, fine, running and booking it down this hill. And I had time to think about a lot of stuff, and I was like, well, I know that bears are bad at running downhill. Like, why do I know that? It's like, they have shorter front legs, so it's weird for them to run downhill. I don't know how I knew that. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna hit the meadow at the bottom of this, which is flat. and I need to gain ground on the downhill so that I can get through the meadow before it can get to me, so I can get to this bear spray that I have in my camp. And it's bear spray. I found it. It's completely sun bleached. I found it in a bush when I was like looking for booty at the base of formations on a rest day. So I didn't even know if it worked or whatever. But so I make ground on the bear. You know, at most he's like 20 feet away from me. So it's just like a bear is chasing me, and yeah. So then I make it to the meadow, this marsh that I've like tiptoed around for 2 weeks, and now I'm just crashing through it. It's all wet and spongy ground that I had tiptoed around, and now I was just flying through it, and I'm just like panting and screaming, and I just rope soloed, this route. So I have a 70-meter rope strapped on my back. I have a double rack. I have a pack. I have water. I have my helmet. I'm just like jumbling through, and I get to my bear spray, and I actually have this on video of like the last part of me running. I grab the bear spray, I rip the safety off, and then I turn and face the bear, and I get all big, and I'm like yelling at it, and then it stops, and then it just starts walking away.
Yeah. I saw the video.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the second you grabbed the bear spray and turned around and looked at it, it was like, all right, I'll go away.
Yeah, right. Which is what you're supposed to do with black bears. It's like you're supposed to stand your ground, but it's like, good luck.
What are you going to stand your ground with? Yeah, my rope.
And so exactly. And so and as I'm running, like it's a very brown black bear. And actually the Wind River Range is one of the few places, we have grizzlies in the, in the continental US. And it's like, it's a very brown black bear. It's definitely a black bear. Like I'd be dead if it wasn't, but I've had people like see the video and they're like, not even sure, and I'm sure because I'd be dead if it wasn't. But it's like, yeah. So I should have stopped somewhere along running away. But I was just like, hey, I have bear spray in my camp. Let me just see if I can get there. And then I was just absolutely tripping balls on adrenaline. And I made myself just sit down and just like, and I have some like selfie videos and stuff, but like, and I wait to see if I broke my leg, basically, right? Because I've been jumping into talus and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's way more likely that I would have just broken a leg, and then the bear would just sniff me and walk away, and then I'd just be there in the mountains with the broken leg, But I just sat there for a while. I had like one cut, and otherwise was like, yeah, maybe my ankles hurt a little bit, but was otherwise fine. And then was going to spend one more night out there, and I just been sleeping, no tent, just like sleeping out. And I was just like, fuck that. I packed everything up and hiked like 8 miles out in the dark. There was this humongous porcupine that scared the shit out of me, because it turns out hiking 8 miles in the dark after that experience is pretty scary too.
I would imagine that would be the most terrifying thing ever. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And I had this buddy who'd been like spending a bunch of time, shout out Thomas Gilmore, in the winds. And he was like, there's not bears. Like you got to take bear precaution, but there's not bears. And dude, the first thing I did was call him up, and I was like, there's not bears, bro. Like there's fucking bears out there, man.
I was in the Tetons, and my buddy and I were like talking about bringing bear spray. I'm like, we're not Jerry's. We don't need bear spray.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, doing a fucking bear spray literally on the approach to fucking Petzold Ridge, like 2 miles in, a mom and 2 cubs on the trail.
Oh yeah, and you got grizzlies there.
And like I grizzlies. Like immediately looked at my buddy, and he's like, you're bringing bear spray on every trip from now on. It's like, you're the reason why we don't have it right now. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if we're gonna get to like my first ascent, which was that big wall route. I don't know.
If that's next, bro.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's just go straight to it. So yeah, this is your first ascent and a big wall at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was both me and my buddy's first. Like neither of us had like set a gym boulder, before this. And
real quick, so name of the route, where it is, and kind of
So we called it Journey to the Center of the Earth. And it's in Princess Louisa Inlet in, British Columbia, coastal British Columbia. It's about like, maybe it's like 80 kilometers north of Vancouver or something. And yeah, it was basically the biggest wall I could find on Google Earth when I was spending a winter just like kind of being bummed and flying around on Google Earth. And there was an American Alpine Journal thing talking about this big wall belt between basically Squamish and Alaska of just like big walls along the coast. And so I just started flying around, and I found all these insane walls. And this is the biggest one I could find. The true wall, which we didn't climb, is 4,600 feet. Which
huge.
Is big,
that is
right?
huge.
It's like 1.5 L caps.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we set out for. We ended up climbing a route only as big as El Cap, and not as steep, right? But which just was like a hilarious, me and a buddy I used to skip class with in high school, just kind of like stumbling through this. And one of our stumbles, and why I brought it up, was related to bears, because we had the same experience. We were in the gear store, like loading up for this expedition, and he's like, "Oh, we should probably get bear spray." And I was like, "Dude, exactly what you're saying. We're not cherries. Like, we don't need bear spray. It's like, dude, you just stand
Well, you
your
need an
ground."
oxygen can too.
Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, you just stand your ground, dude. And then we're on the boat out into this fjord, and the boat driver's like, "Oh yeah, lots of grizzly activity over there." And I go to my buddy and I'm like, "Grizzlies?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude. Like, what do you mean grizzlies?" I was like, I had no like, I mean, anyone should know that, but like, I didn't know there were. I was like, "Holy shit, dude, we need bear spray." And he was like, "I told you that, man." But I like denied him so confidently that it like made him rethink his whole, like, he was like, "I guess you don't. I guess we fight grizzlies with our bare hands now." And then like, as soon as our boat lands, like, we start shuttling a load up to the wall, and we're doing everything wrong, basically. We're like, our first load is the heaviest load, which is not what you should do. You should carry a light load because you're figuring it out. And we just carry all the metal, all the hardware, and we're like just super bogged down. And we're literally within like 2 hours, we're crawling in the mud through like a thicket, overhead thicket, along just grizzly tracks.
Oh my
Just
God.
crawling in the mud. And it's like, this is terrible. Like, it was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable. And but we never even saw a bear. And then the ascent kind of continued in that fashion, and of just kind of like hilarious, just yeah, missteps here and there, but we got it done. And other parties had come to climb the wall and hadn't gotten to the had to kind of stop part of the way, and we went a different took a different line or whatever. But it was 2 weeks with a great friend, and yeah, we placed no bolts. We got and left the mountain just untouched. We walked off the top, which was horrible, and probably would have been way easier to rappel. But yeah, that meant we didn't leave anything on the mountain, and yeah, it's terrible route. Terrible route. I think we called it like 10 plus, 510 plus, C2 maybe.
Yeah, it's 10 plus C2 grade 6.
Yeah, all the good hand cracks were just running with like muck and mud. And then all the free climbing was like these tiny fingertip seams that we were like using the nut tool to like clean out, and then like wrench your finger in. And when you cleaned it out with the nut tool, you put all that dirt on your feet. And so now, and like I had one fall where I like pulled a piece, and yeah, it was kind of this whole misadventure, but with a really good friend, and ultimately, yeah, we got it done, and it was really, yeah, it was cool. It was cool. And I always thought like, oh, you can't do a first ascent until you've climbed every route in an area, and then like like, I don't know, Jim Danini himself says like, yes, you're allowed to do first ascents now, and it's like, no, I mean, like, you can go do first ascents, it's like, and I thought this was an area, like nobody would care about, and but yeah, that kind of broke the seal of doing new routes, and that has been a way I've gotten a lot of adventure from my climbing more recently, is kind of looking for new stuff to do. And yeah, and that trip was supported by a Live Your Dream grant from the American Alpine Club, and everyone should try and get one. If you're psyched on something, they give them out to anyone who's trying something challenging for them. For some people, that might be getting a gym membership. They'll help support that if that makes sense in your climbing progression. And for you, or it can be that trip to the valley you've always wanted to do. Yeah, you should. The American Alpine Club is sick, and you should look into a Live Your Dream grant. You can get one. You don't have to be cutting edge.
Now, how much of it has to be like where the expenses are travel and like logistics? Because I would say a lot, like some of this stuff is more just like, well, I wish I could climb this hard. It's like money doesn't help you climb harder.
Yeah.
It's like money helps you get somewhere, right?
Yeah, that would be a terrible pitch to the American Alpine Club to be like,
I want to send my sport route.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, actually, I don't know. I bet they would fund that. I mean, if like, yeah, if it's like, hey, I really want to do this trip I really want to spend, be able to spend a month or whatever, 2 weeks in Smith Rock or at my project or whatever. And if I mean, I don't know the criteria nowadays, because this was quite a while ago, but yeah, if it fits into your climbing progression, like they'll try and support that. Yeah. And there's no, yeah, it's really cool.
I thought the one of the things that was cool about that is that the decision point you guys made, where you like fixed lines all the way up to 1,000 feet and then just dropped the bag down the wall, and we're like, fuck it, we're going to the top.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So we like didn't do this in like, high alpine style of just in a push, and it's totally a wall that could be done in that way, but we're not those guys. So yeah, we had a bunch of rope and we basically pushed the ropes as high as we could while base camping on the ground. And then there was this moment where it's like, okay, well, what's it going to be? We're out of rope. So either we're going to like climb to the top of the wall, or why did we even kind of come? And we were like waiting for one last weather forecast to come in on the inReach. And I remember being like, kind of like partially hoping it would be just terrible so
Yeah,
that we could,
exactly.
call it good,
Yeah.
and but yeah, so we jugged up our ropes and then shoved all the ropes we didn't, we kept two ropes, a lead rope and a haul line. And then we shoved the rest of them into a haul bag and just like chucked it off the wall. And it was funny because in that like little clip of me doing that, I'm like, now we're committed to the wall. And my partner, he said he didn't realize that until I said that, because
Yeah.
we just got so excited about like, oh, I can't wait to chuck these
Yeah, these
ropes off
bags.
the wall,
Yeah.
and we're not like committed to the wall. And I actually think that's a common like trope for climbers. They're like, there was no way down. And it's like, no, what you're saying is there was no way down that didn't involve leaving gear behind. Or it's like, we had to use this terrible anchor. And it's like, no, you chose to use that like you had options, right? But we were certainly more committed than we had been in the past. And yeah, that was really, really cool experience, and really beautiful place. But like when I shared the story with American Alpine Journal and stuff, the guy Chris Kallman, he wrote the piece that originally inspired me, and he was the editor of my piece when I submitted it, and he was like, "So you didn't climb? So there's still that 4,600-foot unclimbed wall?" And he's like, should we go?" And I was like, "No, man, you didn't like. It's
It's
terrible,
Jaws,
dude.
dude. Yeah.
It's so like it's not actually the rock's really solid, but it's so like it's rainforest kind of like vibes. It's so like yeah. But yeah, check it out, Princess Louisa Inlet. If somebody wants a 4,600-foot FA,
It's up there. Go for
it's
it.
up there. Go for it. Have fun.
What about Alpamayo? Um, I read your entire report. It seemed like other than your kerfuffle trying to get up to high base camp, it seemed like a pretty standard ascent. But it looks like it might have been your last like trip where ice inspired you. Is that true?
Um, you know, um, I would say yeah, it's maybe my last. I'm so bad. So we've actually worked backwards in chronological order, but so this was pretty early on for me. This was actually kind of the start of more towards the start of my ice climbing. But as far as like big mountain objectives, I've climbed, Rainier a bunch since then and stuff. But yeah, I think that was my only. Was this before? I don't know. I went to like the Ruth Gorge and stuff in Alaska, and I can't remember when that was in relation to all this stuff. I think that was after, and I did used to do. I mean, mountaineering was my first kind of love with climbing. I was introduced to mountaineering and technical rock climbing kind of at the same time, and to me, mountaineering was like the raddest shit ever. It was like such an adventure, and I rolled with that for a while, and then got interested in rock climbing, and I think I had an aptitude for it, and so then that was kind of appealing. And then mountains are also really scary, but yeah. So with that, like Alpamayo, super cool mountain in the Cordillera Blanca in Peru. I think it's just shy of 20,000 feet. I think it's 19.5 or something, or maybe it's like
19,511.
yeah. Super cool, beautiful. It was my computer background. It's like this beautiful. It's called the most beautiful mountain in the world in some 1960s German magazine. So for that reason, I had to climb it. But yeah, went with my buddies, and I had like one season of ice climbing under my belt, and they had like less than that. But we were all kind of relatively experienced mountaineers. We had met at a mountain training program and like traversed the northern Patagonian ice cap, and so we had like kind of slogging and suffering experience. And yeah, what was funny about that was like in the emails leading up to that trip, we were all, I was like, I'll lead everything. And they were like, well, we want to lead too. And then when we get on the climb, I was like leading everything, which is what I said I would do. And I was like, you guys want to take a pitch or something, Cause like I'm getting kind of tired, it's like actually this kind of a lot for a newer ice climber. And so I ended up leading the whole climb. Um, and then my mental armor was just shot, and then we they kind of took over for the descent. But that was also, that was again early on in my kind of climbing career, to be honest. And that route is not without its hazards. And I think the next year there were fatalities on it, and I think we got away with that one because we were not fast climbers. We spent I think we were on that thing for like 14, 16 hours or something. And now for the experience, like I said, that was kind of at the beginning of my ice climbing. I continued to pursue ice climbing for many years. Now, I mean, I would just simul that with somebody in like 40, an hour. It's like, I think it's like 8 full rope pitches. So like, but we're a party of 3 pitching it out, and like, it's not so. Yeah, and what happens there, the Cordillera Blanca, why it's so beautiful is because you have these high mountains that are relatively close to the coast. So you have this warm, moist air holding a lot of moisture that suddenly smack into these 20,000-foot mountains, and you get these incredible kind of rime ice formations similar to what you'd see in Patagonia, in El Chalten. And yeah, it's just incredible. But these also destabilize as the day warms up, just as many formations do in the mountain. And I mean, we were exposed for all of that. I mean, we were starting to rappel when it was getting dark again. And so yeah, that was maybe biting a bit more off. I mean, we just put ourselves into the shooting gallery for too long. And
I mean, the shooting gallery is midday when it's starting to get warm.
Yeah, totally. And we were there early morning through midday, through the night, So, but yeah, a beautiful peak and a fun adventure with some friends. And
yeah, it's badass, man. No, I Jack just got back from Peru, and
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's definitely been on like a draft table, I would say. It's like, it's like, do I want to go up there? Just the ice and kind of like the glaciers and stuff. I just have zero experience with them. And so it's just like, I don't know, my lifestyle would have to change, or I'd have to dedicate a large amount of time to like get the skills or hire somebody to go out there with me. And then it's like, not to mention, I mean, I just got back from Huaraz. It's like, even getting to Huaraz is like a fucking mission,
Oh,
and
totally.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot to commit to get up a mountain where there's no actual technical rock climbing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it, right, follow your heart. If it keeps nagging at you, it's like, yeah, start exploring down that path and see where it goes. Yeah, ice is cool. My life's definitely taken me more away from that. I think I'm kind of okay with it because yeah, the mountains are really dangerous. And when I started as a climber, my ultimate was Cerro Torre. I was like, it was alpinism, it was Cerro Torre. It was like, I have to climb Cerro Torre. And I felt like everything I was doing was trying to get ready to one day be able to climb Cerro Torre, and I had a hip injury like a genetic hip deformity basically, and I still have kind of hip problems, and that maybe started to psychologically take me away from kind of these bigger slogging sort of stuff, and then yeah, like I happen to be get good at rock climbing or like really enjoy that, and it slowly just kind of steered me away from that. And I think I was okay with that happening. I was just like, that's dangerous, and I can go climb on El Cap and I feel like it's a crazy adventure, but it all stays, the rock stays, and it doesn't fall down every year. It doesn't like, so, and I've started to get a lot of that kind of adventure from even looking for new single pitches to do and stuff. It's like so fun for me, especially in a place like Tahoe. There's so much rock to explore. I just can't wait. Like, what's around? Like, what if there's a cool, nice cliff around this corner, And so I mean, developing can be kind of sketchy as well, but I can do that all kind of close to home and with less objective hazard. And yeah, especially, yeah, with climate change and stuff and the stories you hear I've spent a lot of time in Patagonia, but I've never been to El Chalten actually. And I don't know if I will. It's a long ways to go to like shoot for a weather window and stuff, and it's like expensive. And then, yeah, there's just, everyone thinks they're being safe, right? Nobody wants to have a ice blob kill them in their sleep, but it's still, so yeah, I think I might not have to do that.
Did you
I'm
see,
okay
I
with
think it was
that.
Colin Haley's recent rope solo ascent of
Oh yeah,
Saratory?
totally crazy. I
God,
haven't like dug my fingers into it, but
holy
yeah.
shit, those pictures were insane.
Yeah, oh my gosh, those rhyme eyes. Yeah, that's dude, what a legend. Yeah,
It's like building an
insane.
anchor out of like shovels and snow pickets
Yeah,
and just like
totally.
climbing up and then rappelling back down. It's some crazy shit.
Crazy. Yeah, it's so
Crazy.
crazy.
All right, I want to close this conversation off with the topic of briefly talking about guiding and mentorship, because you are a guide, you're a certified guide, you have your own business vertical pursuits, and so I'd love to get into kind of a little bit about your business and kind of what sets you apart from other agencies. But I think the first topic on this that I'd like to cover is, uh, in the climbing culture, there's definitely kind of an aversion to hiring guides, I'd say. It's definitely, built in it's been ingrained in our culture to find a mentor, find that one person who knows a little bit more than us to learn from them. And then that's kind of like the process. But with how many climbers are entering the scene, there's a disparity between the people who have skills and the people who don't. And while we can all be mentors for each other in a way, in a micro sense, I still think it doesn't really solve the problem. So, obviously the answer to that problem is to hiring a guide and fast tracking yourself kind of through the danger zone, especially as a trad climber, into this space where we can play safely and learn safely. But I guess like for people who are struggling with the financial aspect, or aren't really captured by the idea of hiring a guide, and are more in this allure of finding a mentor, I want to talk about some of the pitfalls that we might run into as climbers when we don't follow the trajectory of hiring a guide, and like what are the main common things that we're going to run into as climbers when we don't, like we try to find a mentor and maybe just teach ourselves. Like what are the
Yeah.
things that slow us down?
Yeah, totally. And like I'm a guide, and so I'm biased. I don't think people have to hire guides, and that it's actually how I got into the sport. Is I learned through institutions. I started with Knowles National Outdoor Leadership School, and that was kind of an institutionalized. It wasn't particularly technical, but that was my introduction. And I went through something that now doesn't exist, but the mountain training school that was mountaineering and rock climbing and ski guide training, and then the AMGA. So I've spent lots of time, hundreds of days being instructed. And now, of course, that's what I do. And I still get instructed. I still take furthering education with the AMGA and stuff. And so that's how I know. And there's no such, you don't learn without learning for yourself, right? Even with all that, I still had to go and learn and do and learn and study and practice and learn on my own. And yeah, so like the mentorship, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of climbers out there now, and there's not a lot of mentors. Back in the day, there wasn't a lot of climbers, and so the climber in town would have to mentor people so that they would have partners to climb with, and that was kind of the model. And now I think there's a lot of people coming into the sport, which is great, and there's maybe not a lot of potential mentees. I also think the psychology of the sport is a little bit more about the individual nowadays. And so, if I take you climbing, I'm not going to get to climb stuff that's hard for me and notable for me or whatever. And maybe I'm projecting, but I think that exists a little bit. It's like, well, what's my benefit if I take you? There's actually tons of possible climbing partners I could have.
Well, I think that also speaks to the disparity of the difference between you and your partner, right? Like you could be a mentor for somebody who's like slightly not as strong as you, and they could still belay you on something that's pushing for you, that's like maybe out of their realm for leading, but they can like now see the possibilities of like what's possible versus like, a 512 plus 513 climber bringing out somebody for their first 5.8. It's like, that's a little bit too much of a disparity for a
Right.
mentorship.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, so and then some pitfalls with mentorship, again, not poo-pooing it. I think it's great, and if you can find that, and if you have the personality type for that, right, to seek that out, and you find a relationship that works, that's fantastic. Something to look out for though is like, just because somebody's been climbing 6 months longer than you, a year longer than you. What does that even mean to be climbing? Like, what does that mean? You climbed in the gym? You've been gym climbing for a year? Like, you've been trad climbing 3 days a week? You've been like, what does it mean to climb for a year, right? You want to dig into, you want to kind of figure that out. It doesn't necessarily mean that they just know that little bit more than you, and that could be really dangerous, right? They're going to do their best to share what they know, but they only know what they know, and if they aren't professionals at the craft, and even professionals at the craft, I'm learning all the time, right? Um, so you can kind of only know as much as they know if they're the person bringing you in, and there's kind of so many common. Maybe they're the style of person that's like, if you're not trying, you're not falling or something, right? So you're brought up under that mindset. Or maybe they're like, yeah, the leader shall not fall, or whatever it is. And you'll be, it's great to, you want to expose yourself to as much different avenues as you can. And
Or they're doing
um,
something dangerous and you don't have the skills to recognize it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And often that can be somebody when they're really confident about something, that's when maybe alarm bells can go off a little bit. It's like, well, can you explain this to me? Can you help me understand this, And I think I don't know. I hope people aren't going out there and just blindly putting trust in people. I think it's easy to do, and I shared a story where I was doing that with Brad, and but like, try and think for yourself as much as possible, people sometimes feel worried about thinking for themselves because they just want to be told what to do, and okay, that person said it, or I read it in a book, so it must be okay. But the sooner in your climbing career you start to understand the why behind things, and not just do monkey see monkey do, the better you're going to be better off you're going to be in the future. A lot of what I do, I didn't learn in a book or get approved by somebody. It's just kind of like, well, let's think through this. If this, then that, like, figure it out. Are we using climbing equipment? Sick. Are we using climbing knots that people commonly use climbing? Sweet. We're probably going to be okay. Like anchor building, people get totally lost in anchor building. It's like, get good gear in and tie some knots.
There's a difference between like memorization and conceptualization.
Totally. Yeah, and today, for example, like, I was teaching lead rope soloing today, and I don't want to tell someone how to lead rope solo. I want to help explain all the component parts. I want you to understand them and understand the pros and cons of all the various systems, and then you make an educated choice. And when you're teaching a beginner, that's very hard to do, right? But we're going to start the process. We're going to, as this person was describing the system, and I was like, okay, and what does that do? Why do we put that knot there? Why are we using an anti-crossloading carabiner there? What's the concern? Why don't we don't have that concern when we're with a partner, so what's different when we're alone? And just building that understanding. So yeah, mentors are great if you can find that. And if not, consider hiring a guide if you can, or joining a group course. Those are often more cheaper, right, than a private day. And we don't call ourselves vertical pursuits guides or climbing guides. We think of ourselves as mentors. I mean, it's for money. Sorry, we got to make a living, and I feel so lucky that I happen to commit my life to a pursuit that other people value and want. And that I can share my knowledge and experience, and that's a living. Like, that's so cool. But yeah, like, we teach people to climb. We don't take people climbing. Like, I've guided maybe like 4 pitches this season, right? But I've been teaching tons and tons. I'm watching people lead pitches all the time. I just mostly teach. It's what I love to do, and I find a lot of reward from it. But yeah, I think when we think of guides, like, there's no stigma around hiring guides in other countries. Like in Europe, you go climbing, you hire a guide. They're experts at their thing. You go with them, right? And yeah, I think people think guides are for beginners, or guides are, they take you up climbs, which is true, and which is why, even though in the AMGA, kind of the guide term is the highest level, the instructor term is actually a lower tier, basically. But I kind of, I think of myself as an instructor, as a teacher, as a mentor, and I think it's harder to do. Man, I would love, it's way harder setting up a lead rope solo instructional day than going and climbing a 4-pitch 5.9. Like, that sounds so chill. But yeah, like, we teach more advanced courses. So like, we call them all kind of our beyond the basics courses. So like, trad beyond the basics, like, we're whipping on gear, we're doing it. And like, multi-pitch beyond the basics, it's like, efficiency tips, all this sort of stuff. And And man, there's so much to learn. I mean, like, right, I still go to trainings where I'm taught by higher level and higher trained people than me in kind of specific instructional things. But there's a lot that experienced climbers can teach you. Those same, when you probably experience it when you do get to rope up with someone that's really good. It's like, wow, you kind of learn a lot. And the pros in any discipline, right? Whether it's dentistry or rock climbing, it's like they kind of know what they're doing. I mean, not all pros are created equal. The term guide is completely unregulated term in the US. Like, anyone can say they're a guide, yada yada. And do some digging and find out if that person has experience with what you're asking them about, or get some recommendations or something. But I think taking a course, or hiring for a private day, man, we can cut through a lot of misconceptions and really help level you up. And really what it is we give you a lot of confidence, because we've been there, right? It's like, I've fallen thousands of times on gear. It's like, let's talk about it. What are your misconceptions? And let me just help you cut through all that stuff, because you're trying to be smart, you're trying to do the right thing, but you've heard so many things and you're trying to keep all those things in your head. Oh, metal on metal's bad. And like, I can't overcam the cam, and I can't, and it's all these things, and we can just, cut through all that. And it's like, here's what really matters. Is the rock good quality? Great. Stick a piece in there, obviously that's not it, but like, it's like the rock has to be good, or with anchor building, it's like, there's no magic here. The gear has to be good, and then tie some knots, you're good, right? If your gear is bad, your anchor's bad. If your gear is good, your anchor's good. Whatever, play with your own rigging trickery or whatever. But it's like, yeah, we can cut through a lot. And I think the big thing we give people is confidence. And then, folks go, I watch people all the time jump from being 5'6" trad climbers to 5'10" trad climbers right there in our trad course, right? Because they have the movement skill, but they just don't have the confidence yet. And we help them with actual experience flip the switch from leader shall not fall to, no, you've actually gotten the reps in placing gear, and you actually place good gear. You place good gear, so you are now allowed to take falls, basically, and it's not just theorizing about it. It's like, as best as we can be clear, it's like, this is a good piece of gear, based on my thousands of falls and not, not having incidents, not having accidents. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's up to people if they want to hire guides. We really love what we're doing, kind of teaching more advanced stuff. We teach small courses. Our courses are limited to 4 people.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
4 people, right? It's like, and I think when you're looking at guides, try and look to see if they're certified. You're not going to pay more for somebody that's certified, so you might as well pay for someone that's certified, in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased. I am certified.
There's a difference between trained and certified.
Yes, there's a difference for sure. It's semantic, and it's not to say that people who are lower level certifications aren't very good at what they do, and vice versa. That people that have the full cert aren't necessarily amazing to spend time with, or really all that active rock climbers themselves these days, right? But you can dig, and figure out who am I actually going to be climbing with? What's their resume? And then, yeah, try and look at the ratio. I think any guide service should be publishing the ratio for their programs of how many guides per, person. Because often you show up and there's 15 people in one guide, and you're just standing around on the ground. So that's going to be a whole different quality product than if you're, yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to provide value to more than 4 people. I can, and even when I do a full course with 4, it's like, it feels like a lot to me. I can't imagine doing more. It's great I love connecting with individuals, seeing where they're actually at, and coaching to that. So that's some advice I would give to people looking at guides. You have every right to know exactly who you're going to be going out with. And it would totally not be unreasonable to ask them their certification, find out their certification level, and their experience related to the topic. If you're taking a big wall course, show me what big walls have you climbed, and then I think the ratio is really important too, and can help you inform and kind of compare and stuff.
When people are searching, so let's say someone doesn't live in Tahoe and can't particularly reach out to you or pursue something that you're offering. What kind of questions or what kind of like direction can the climber give to a agency or to a guide to better serve their needs as a climber and kind of what they're going for? How can we better articulate what we are actually looking for from a guide?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you're signing up for a group course, right, there's going to be like a curriculum for that
Yeah,
day.
I'm
And
more
so,
talking about like individual, like I'm hiring this guide for a day. Like I feel like there's almost some sort of responsibility on us to like almost pick an objective or pick certain topics that we're trying to like solve within ourselves. Like how can we better answer those questions for ourselves or present these situations to a guide?
yeah, totally. I think, the more you say, the better, they ultimately, a good guide is there for you. They serve you. They want to get you what you wanted out of that day. We just got an inquiry about somebody who was so specific. They were like, I want to work on 5-7 slabs and I want an instructor hanging next to me, coaching me on my technique. And I was like,
Nice.
sweet, like, let's do it. I cannot wait. You are so psyched on slab climbing. Um, but yeah, be specific and know that there's only so many hours in a day, right? They're only going to be able to do so much for you. And think a lot about, do you want to do an activity or do you want to learn an activity, right? So I often have people reach out about Big Wall and they're like, because we offer like overnight ascents on Calaveras Dome here in California and out in Moab and stuff. And they're like, oh, I want to learn how to big wall, like I want to spend the night on a wall. And it's like, okay, wait. Those are two different things. Do you want to learn how to big wall? Do you want an intensive 2 days course of us at a crag, not on a big wall, learning all the core fundamental skills? And we're going to drill them and you're going to have such good habits so that you can then go climb a big wall on your own. Or do you want to spend the night on a wall with me where, yeah, you're going to learn some skills and we'll teach you how to jug and you'll absorb through osmosis some of this stuff that's going on, but you're certainly not going to be able to go do it, and which of those is it going to be? So, like, yeah, there's only so much time in a day. And yeah, if you come with an objective, hey, I want to climb this objective, that's great. That's kind of more traditional guiding. Or if it's like, hey, I have gear fear, or I want to workshop falling on my gear, or I want, a like experienced eye on my gear placements and stuff. And I think that would be huge, man. If people can take a half day, which is often, more affordable, maybe with your partner, that would be so sick. And I think a good bang for your buck to hire a respected guide in your area, or like a guide that you look into and they engage in the style of climbing you're engaging with. If that's like, I like falling, or I want to engage with falling on my gear, see if they engage with falling on their gear, right? And then, yeah, spend a half day and they'll be able to flip that switch for you. Look at your gear, be like, okay, it's pretty good. I'm noticing these trends. You're often, you're placing a little shallow or whatever it is, right? And then get on the wall and take some falls, potentially with the top rope back up, like mock lead style or whatever, and then start workshopping some falling movement. In a 4-hour half day, I think you could 8 hours is better, but
Like
you could
take
get a
take
lot.
the magic mushroom with Mario and level up.
Yeah, totally, right. And what's that going to cost you? It's going to cost you like a cam and a half or something, like, right? Like
So are we
ultimately, and
talking for
you'll
like a half day, like $200?
our half day rate is 250. Yeah, and I think other people, you could shop that around. If somebody hit me up and wanted to do a half day at my local area that wasn't far for me for 200, I would be super down. But yeah, check it out. It's all over the map. There's yeah, check it out. I think that could be that. I think for the biggest impact on your personal climbing, that would be it. Like, get the green light on your gear from somebody who actually falls on gear a lot, and have them give you some notes and maybe take some falls if you're excited to explore climbing in that way. But that's what we love to do. It's like we like to teach a person to fish so that they can have all these experiences I've had in my climbing, which has taught me about myself, about the world I live in, and about the people in that world, right? It's like that's what gets me excited. It's not so that they can spray about climbing 510 or whatever. It's so that, like, it's to let them into this passion that can, like, help them move through the world and learn about themselves. And And yeah, I feel so lucky to be able to do that, and yeah, teach kind of more interesting stuff. The lead rope solo days are really interesting. The falling on gear days are always really interesting. And I learned so much, honestly, from the people. They ask me such interesting questions, and I have to investigate and learn. And so, yeah, it's great.
Oh, where can people find you? Where can people kind of follow your story or find you and your guide services?
Yeah, so we're verticalpursuitsclimbing.com. We're based in Northern California. We have so many permits. We've got like everything covered in Northern California pretty much, except for, of course, Yosemite. But yeah, so if you want to climb sport in the summer, we got you. Sport in the winter, we got you. Trad multi-pitch in the summer, we got the great locations for it. We're also out in Red Rock this fall. We do trips in Mexico in the winter in El Potrero Chico, and we're also out in Moab, usually in the spring and the fall as well. But yeah, verticalpursuitsclimbing.com, and then our Instagram is verticalpursuitsclimbing. And yeah, you can check us out, or I'd be happy to like point you in the right direction in your area. I've got know a lot of folks around the country that guide, and I can help you kind of decipher that. Reach out. I'm always telling people, reach out. Like if my phone was ringing, I got no calls during this conversation, right? It's like, and I tell everyone, hit me up. Like you've got, like I'd be happy to inform you as best I can and help steer you the right direction. I'm learning new sports that, I would love that opportunity in. So, yeah, reach out, ask questions, and we'd love to help you out.
Cool. Awesome, man. No, I appreciate your time. It's been such a great time sitting down and chatting with you. The last time we spoke was on our meet and greet, and I was driving to Yosemite the last time. So it's been cool to come full circle, and yeah, just been really cool to hear your story and your perspective. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for chatting, man. That was a lot of fun. I was worried for you, but you pulled out a good interview. So.